Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is not a fan of her boyfriend's education. My girlfriend constantly downplays my business degree. I, 24 male, have been with my girlfriend, who's 23, for a couple of years now. She's working towards her doctorate, and I have an associate's degree in business, though I work in a trade completely unrelated to my field of study. There's a point of contention that keeps coming up: my business education. Whenever we talk about the economy or business topics, I often share insights based on what I learned in my business courses. I might say, when I was in business school, they taught me this, or I took a course on this in business school. I mention it fairly often. It's a point of pride for me as I put myself through that program. The other day, she asked if I genuinely considered my associate's degree a business degree because she doesn't see it that way. I explained that yes, I do consider it a business degree because my studies were centered around business topics. It felt like she was downplaying my efforts. She has debt from her bachelor's degree, while I managed to finance my associates myself, and I think that maybe that's part of the tension. She tried to clarify that when people say they have a business degree, they usually mean a BA or a BS in business, or an MBA. She feels like I might be overstating my qualifications and taking away from those who have obtained higher degrees. She also pointed out that I don't work in the business field, although my job does involve sales components. When she said all of this, I felt accused of inflating my credentials. I told her that it felt like she was trying to diminish my accomplishments. If I'm being honest with myself, I understand why she might see things this way, but it still stings. My associate's degree might not be as prestigious as a bachelor's or a master's, but it represents hard work and determination on my part. Now I'm stuck wondering if I'm wrong for being proud of my associate's degree, and if I should stop referring to it as a business degree. Am I inflating my achievements, or is she being too harsh? Is it unfair to call my education a business degree, or is she making me feel small for no reason? Not the jerk. You have every right to be proud of your associate's degree and the hard work you put into earning it. Education comes in many forms, and while your girlfriend may have a more advanced degree, that doesn't diminish the value of your accomplishments. You're not misrepresenting your education by referring to it as a business degree. Stand tall and keep being proud of what you've achieved. Not the jerk. This is why I would never date someone who has an advanced degree or plans to get one. No matter what they say, they will always think they're better than you because of their degree. They will think they are above you, smarter than you, and their actions will reflect that. Stay away from those kinds of people. They may make a lot of money, but they lack humility. How do I tell my husband I don't want his mother around after I give birth? I, 26 female, am set to give birth in about a week or so. I told my husband, 26 male, that I wanted my mother in the room with me while I give birth and a few weeks after to help me adjust to motherhood. His mother has always been very overbearing and self-centered in my opinion. During our wedding, she stayed in our apartment 2 weeks after we married, took naps in our bed, and continuously drank out of all of my Mrs. glasses. She even wants to steal my mom's already established grandmother name. She's been a grandmother for 7 years to my brother's kids. His mother stresses me out, and it's just too much all the time. My mom is coming to genuinely help me and support me. His mother just wants to come because she's jealous of my mom. I know if I bring this up to my husband, he's going to get upset and super defensive. So how do I gently bring up that I don't want his mother around during this time, and I just want to be with my mom? Edit on the grandmother name. She initially wanted to be called Mama T. Thankfully, she changed her mind on that. She then said she wanted to be Gigi. My mom is already Gigi to my nieces and nephews, and 2 Gigis would be confusing. She then settled on GGT. Your husband should never have anybody's back but yours, and if something like this starts a fight between you two, then you have a husband problem way more than a mother-in-law problem. There is no discussion. You just had a baby and you don't want her there. Get used to having a backbone now, because when the baby comes, her crazy will intensify by 100. Update. I had the conversations with my husband about not wanting his mother around after I give birth. I didn't tell him the harsher reasons why, like she's overbearing. I just told him that I would prefer the privacy during the first month to properly recover with people around me. At first, he was a little upset because he knows as a mother of all boys, she might always be an afterthought during her son's life milestones, but understood my reasoning. He told me he spoke with his mother and she wouldn't come until the end of the month, and I was happy he honored my wish. A few days later, his mom called to check in and said she would be coming while my mom is in town. After I spoke to her, I confronted my husband about it, and he said he was confused because they spoke and she agreed. He called his mom back, and it was just a classic case of his mom being his mom. Our healthy baby decided to arrive 1 week early, so my out-of-state mother unfortunately missed his birth as well. Such is life, I guess, but she'll be here tomorrow to help aid in my recovery. All in all, things ended fine. Edit. Not sure why I'm getting so much hate. Both of our parents are out of state. It's not like his mother can swing by for 2 hours and leave. It has to be a whole planned trip. I also never said she could never see the baby ever. I've only been having a really hard time with my postpartum experience, and I'm very overwhelmed. My mom is here to support me and my needs physically, emotionally, and mentally. It truly has nothing to do with wanting my mom to see and bond with the baby and not her. His mother wouldn't be here for me and my needs, and that's the issue. I don't need her here judging me, which she already has while I'm in a vulnerable state. I need love from the woman who made me. And for those of you saying that you hope you never have a daughter-in-law like me, I hope I don't either, because I wouldn't wish how I'm feeling mentally on anyone. I ruined my wife's life. I, male 43, try my best to provide for my wife, who's 38, and our 2 kids, who are 3 and 5, as well as my mother-in-law, and would like to think that I'm doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently master's in a STEM-related degree, I at the same time worked 2 full-time jobs while completing my second bachelor's and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money, $60 to $70K a year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since given up on her career to be a stay-at-home mom for the time being. At first, it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump, and now we're able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich, but we do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little north of $150K base plus bonuses. The past year, life was overwhelming per my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with 1 kid while the other is in school now. My day starts every day around 5:30 to 6 a.m. I get the house ready for the day before our nanny arrives at 8. I get our oldest up and ready for school, breakfast made, and plan out my day, bring our oldest to drop off, and be home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I'm now 100% work from home, which is nice. I'm busy in meetings all day, as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects for my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized my wife, even though she says her life is stressful at home, starts at 10 a.m. I asked my mother-in-law and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of work from home, and they both responded more or less, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up and cooks, and then scrolls through her phone and shops from home, which brings me to my gripe. I'm glad I'm able to provide for her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, the fact that I probably am a crappy husband. But for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances. She claims she was too busy to do so. I pay all of the household bills. I pay my own personal bills. I pay hers. I track and perform all of the upkeep of our house appliances, cars, pets, etc. And I also help pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills and car note. But apparently, my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day, but she had it worse because I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a kid clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc. But when I reminded her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My mother-in-law has brought me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids, and I talk to the dogs more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I'm in an emotional survival mode as I'm 1 step away from moving up the career ladder and 1 step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure I'll be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I'm simping, but I'm not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize, aside from my kids, appreciates and loves me for what I do. I'm sure I'll hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit, which is fine. I grew up in a single mother household. It's not easy. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny, Monday through Friday, for 1 toddler while another kid is at school, Can you honestly tell me she's having the typical stay-at-home mom experience? Because neither my friends or colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I'm sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfiction, but it is what it is. Update. I showed my wife my post the following weekend, and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument. She left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say, aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. Nothing much else to say other than thank you for the kind words of encouragement. Update. My wife left. Came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. I'm continuing to suffer mentally, knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully, so was her whole family, including her sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family since she doesn't work and her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stay with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she decided that it would be fine if she just walked in the door with her bags, as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team, and I couldn't just jump off of this. This is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment, I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I have been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another, and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally, it was about her struggles staying at her family's house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this, and buy this or do that, and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else in our family's lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. My wife: "Well, do you know how hard this is for me? You're supposed to help me be happy." Me: "So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, forget me, right?" Wife: "We all have our own problems. You need to figure it out and get over them." I don't know who this woman is anymore, but she's definitely not the same woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch. She's still starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups. Nothing has changed, and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we get divorced, nothing will change or feel different anyway. My main fear is not that I wouldn't just lose my wife, but that I'd lose my kids in the process. So I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story, with like a lot of men and some women I've talked to here, I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. The weird thing is that it seems obvious to me that the wife needs to go back to work, but that never seems to have come up as an option. Not everybody is happier or even happy at all as a stay-at-home parent. Some people will do the human equivalent of chewing hot spots in themselves if they don't go out and pursue a career. This wife seems to be one of them, but for some reason she doesn't seem capable of just saying so, and OP doesn't seem capable of seeing that. Maybe a divorce with OP having majority physical custody will give her the wake-up call that she needs. Why wouldn't you just get a divorce? If it's for the kids, this is the worst thing for them. Imagine growing up thinking this is what adult relationships are supposed to be like. Those kids are being programmed to accept terrible relationships as the norm. I feel so bad for them. What should I say to my ex's mom who's asked to meet in person so I can explain why I broke up with her son? For context, I broke up with my boyfriend of 6 years a few weeks ago. It was an amazing 6 years together. We were always happy and never had any issues, but I made a lot of sacrifices to keep us together. For instance, I paid thousands of dollars to get a visa and move to his country. I also turned down my dream job to get a job in his city. And over the past year, I started realizing that I haven't made any decisions for myself. I finally decided that I don't want to wake up one day regretting that I've lived my whole life for someone else. I doubt my ex gave as much of an explanation when he told his parents, so I'm sure they thought something must have happened to make me break up, which they must have thought because just this morning his mom messaged me. I was expecting something along the lines of, "We're sorry to hear about the breakup, but we hope you know we will always be here for you." But I was very wrong. She started with, "As you can imagine, we are rather shell-shocked after ex-boyfriend broke the news that you've broken up with him. Doesn't seem too bad, but then she says her and my ex's dad will be in town seeing my ex, but they want to meet up with me on their way home. She says they want to hear my side of things and explain why I broke up with him." She then ends the message by saying not to tell my ex about it because she doesn't want him to know that she's meddling in this. I told a couple of people about this, but they all think it's sweet and that I should do it. But it just feels wrong to me. She's always been normal and really nice, but I feel really weird about the whole thing. First of all, my ex will be living with one of my friends next year, so they're basically asking me not to tell either. Secondly, we are 25. She should not be asking me to basically defend my decision. I mean, come on. She should know as a woman how annoying it is to not have our feelings believed. Why should I have to explain my side of the story? Can't she just accept that whatever reason I have for breaking up with him is a valid reason, whether or not she knows it? Am I overreacting? Should I just do what my friends have said and meet up with them? Please help. Don't. She's meddling, and it's not your job to keep things she wants from her son. It wasn't sweet. Sweet is, we loved having you in our family, or we're sad we won't get to see you anymore. That's an olive branch to stay in touch. This is pure going behind her kid's back and creating drama. Hi, I'm not comfortable keeping things from my ex. It's been an amicable breakup, and I want it to remain so. Thanks for reaching out, but I don't think any questions you have should be discussed with me. It depends on the relationship you had with his mom. If you talked socially, met up regularly, got to know each other, then having a bit of closure for her and you is understandable after 6 years. If you didn't have a relationship with her, she just happened to be his mom, you rarely spoke or spent time together, then there's nothing to discuss. My sense is you've already moved on and that's fine, but other people might not be as efficient. Yeah, I'm gonna go against the grain here. I can see why his mom is curious. This is weird. We're strangers on the internet. You don't have to tell us anything either, I get that. But OP, you make it clear that I paid thousands of dollars to get a visa for and move to his country, and I also turned down my dream job in his city. They were both your choices. How can you say that I haven't made any decisions for myself when you've literally laid out how you made decisions for yourself? Did he force you to move? No, you never had any issues. Did he coerce or bully you into your decisions? No, he didn't. By your own admittance, you decided. To top it off, you started by saying the relationship was amazing and you were always happy and never had any issues. So why are you breaking up with him then? This just doesn't add up. Of course his mom is confused, especially after 6 years. So of course OP should show the respect she hasn't shown Reddit and actually explain to his mom why decisions she made herself are suddenly her son's fault. This is what I was thinking. Something doesn't add up here. If she truly was happy in this so-called amazing relationship and she left it anyway, then she's probably going to fully regret it one day. I feel bad for the guy in all honesty, as he's invested 6 years of his life into this woman and she's bailed on him for no good reason. I hope he finds someone he deserves. The grass is greener syndrome, perhaps. Except what people seldom realize is that the grass is greenest where you water it. Am I the jerk for moving across the country and telling my daughter that they are the reason I am an absent grandparent? So I have 2 grandkids that are 4 and 7. I live about 45 minutes away from them. At the beginning, I was still working, so it was hard to make time to visit them. I would go up to visit them, and it sadly was not fun. I'm not baby crazy, and I don't want to spend my whole day watching a kid sleep, so I would stay for 2 to 3 hours before going home. My daughter hated that I wouldn't spend more time, and I told her that when they're older, we'll bond more. I got into a car accident. It wasn't bad, and it was my fault. The sun got in my eyes, and I bumped into someone's car. In total, it was like $300 worth of damage since their car had dents in the back. It was a very minor accident. After that, my daughter forbade me from driving anywhere with her kids, so now when I go up, I can't do anything with the kiddos. There's only so much I can do in the house, and I would have loved to take them out to places. I've asked her to drive down since I live in a walkable area, but no, it's too difficult to get them loaded up and down here. I still tried, but the more she didn't want to visit me, the more I got tired of this. Not to mention, she was always on me about not being more involved. I've told her so many times that you don't let me do much with them. My breaking point was last summer. I was babysitting them in the summer, and I brought up a kid's sprinkler. You connect it to the hose, and they run around through it on a splash pad. The kids had a great time, but my daughter was upset since it ruined the grass. The water made mud, and kids running messed up the grass. After that, I just stopped trying. I told her to take the kids to me, and she refused. I'm retiring and selling my home. I wish to move near the Blue Mountains, which is across the country. I told all the kids, and everyone was happy for me except for my daughter. We got in a huge fight about me being a crappy grandparent. I told her she's the reason I'm an absent grandparent. She called me a jerk. Not the jerk. It's not that hard to get 2 kids in a car for 45 minutes. She just doesn't want to. I actually live at the base of the Blue Mountains, and my in-laws live near the airport. We go visit them with our 7-year-old roughly once a fortnight. Sometimes they come to us, but we like going out there and looking at the beach. We've done this since little one was a baby. It's not hard. They have the best adventures, can jump on the light rail, ferry, whatever, and go to different places. Good luck with your move. I accidentally started a family with my best friend, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I had a very rough childhood growing up. I didn't have a dad, and my mom was never really there because she had a rough battle with health issues and she got hooked on things. I had friends growing up, but I had my best friend since I was 12. Her name is Lily. We've been extremely close due to our childhood issues, and we had always been there for each other. We had talks of being together, but got cold feet because we were scared if it didn't work, we couldn't recover from that. When I was 18, I didn't really want to go to college. School had never really been for me, so I went into a trade. I work long hours, but it's been worth it, and I make solid money right now for my position. I'll come back to this in a bit. When we were 19, Lily got pregnant by her boyfriend. This dude somehow managed to avoid child support payments and broke up with her and has not seen the kid once in his life. Complete deadbeat. Makes me disgusted. Lily was scared, but I told her I would be here when she needed me. She didn't have parents that would help, but I told her I would help her where I can when the kid gets here. Lo and behold, she gave birth to a beautiful baby named Kelsey. I was there when she was born, and it was a weird moment. I don't know how to explain it, but I did feel happy for her. Now we're 21, and ever since then, Kelsey has had me wrapped around her finger. I've done my round of diapers, bottles, middle of the night screaming, etc. Every day I get home from work, we sit there and we watch her little shows, and we spend a lot of time together as the 3 of us as well. When we walk, she grabs my pointy finger with her whole hand because it's so little. As of recently, she's begun speaking. She's been calling me Daddy. I've been feeling really weird about it lately, feeling like it's not right and that someday she needs to know the truth. I talked to Lily about it one night and got her opinion on it. She sat there with a slight grin, and then she came up behind me and hugged me. She said, "You're the best dad she could ever ask for," and then proceeded to tell me, "We'll worry about talking to her when she understands. As far as she's concerned, you are her daddy, and you are to me as well." I turned around and hugged her. We had a long talk about what's been going on lately with us, as we've been engaging in not-so-just-friends activities, and she just said, "I like this. I like our family." I just kind of froze for a second and asked her, "Is this what we want to do?" And she followed up by saying, "I think we've been doing this for a while now," and then laughed. We had a great moment and agreed to be a family. I told her I needed to run to the store for some diapers for Kelsey. On the way there, I burst into tears. I cried for maybe a good 30 minutes. I don't even know how to describe what I was thinking and feeling, but I was happy. I just know that there isn't a thing in this world I wouldn't do for these 2. It feels like I can relax and reflect on everything that's happened to this point, but also I don't. I basically have a family I'm looking out for. Like, no matter what happens, I have people who will depend on me, and something like that makes me want to be the best man I can. In about another year, I will have my official license for my trade, giving me a substantial pay raise and a new job that I've already lined up. I've already started looking at houses and rings. We've also started talking about having our own once I get my license. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I wanted to share it with someone, but I don't really have those people in my life. Thanks for reading. Don't marry her. It's a trap. You'll regret this long term. You'll never be her kid's father, and she'll never see you that way when she's an adult. You're just setting yourself up to get hurt in the future. Okay, bud, that's your opinion. I didn't ask for it. He's correct, OP. You've been brought up in a crappy family, so you want to give back to the world in this regard, and I can see you have good intentions and a good heart. But your friend got pregnant at 19 from somebody extremely irresponsible. She could have taken all sorts of measures to prevent this, but she did not, at 19. Now she's found you, a responsible man, to dump her responsibilities onto. Her daughter will have a good chance of not seeing you as her dad when she grows up. He's cool and he loved me, but he's not my dad. This is the reaction you're very likely to get. You're being stupid and messing up your life. Isn't it so convenient for her to be so willing to start a relationship with someone like you now? You were friend-zoned until this. I'm assuming she's fairly more attractive than you are, so this is maybe why you're acting this way. But I'd simply let it all go. It's okay. Just say sense of responsibility overwhelmed you and leave her. There's a good chance of her cheating on you in the future. Let's hope OP is one in the thousands that will get this situation to work and last until old age. Let's hope he's not one of many thousands that will be coming to Reddit telling his story of how his girlfriend or wife is no longer the same person that he helped through her pregnancy, that he paid for her daughter's wedding, but now daughter wants biological dad to walk her instead. This is life, and the rolling of the dices will be different for each of us. Good luck to OP for the best outcome. LMAO. Congrats on being her second choice and raising someone else's kid. Well done. Second choice? What's wrong with you? You sound like you're jealous of the fact that he's found love with someone who actually cares about him. Any guy can get someone pregnant, but it takes a real man to man up and raise a baby. We need more men like OP in our world who are willing to step up and do the right thing, and less people like you who want to insult others because you're miserable with your own life. But he is second choice. She never wanted to be with him in the past. He says they got cold feet, but what he means is she got cold feet. It wasn't until she was a single mom that he was already supporting that she realized how much use she could get out of him as a stand-in dad and an okay partner to settle down with for now. This is what happens all the time, and it's humorous to me that people deny it's how reality works. Bro raising someone else's kid. OP. And, as far as I'm concerned, she's mine. The minute she grows up, she's gonna go out looking for her biological daddy. You're a great man though, but stepkids ain't ever turn yours. She's going to leave to find her real dad and then come home with another completely unrelated baby that OP is going to raise in 15 years. LMAO. Guitar Karen demands my time slot because her son needs something to do after school. This happened a couple of days ago and I thought you guys would enjoy it. As a bit of backstory, I play the electric guitar. I take lessons from a teacher that is absolutely the best in the area at what he does. He's been doing it for about 30 years now, so he's really, really good. Understandably, he's also really booked up. When lockdown hit and everyone started doing online classes for school, he lost a bunch of students because they typically go to his class after school. And since they weren't in school or doing extracurricular activities, their parents, I guess, decided to yank them from guitar lessons too. One of the things that makes my teacher awesome is that he tends to give scheduling priority to his older students, like me, 41, because they don't give him the headaches of having to manage every little thing between this and that thing for school. It kind of sucks for parents because he's had enough of the headaches of rearranging everyone's life because little Johnny has to play his leading role of being a rock in the school play. Now, this matters because now that kids are starting to go back into the classroom where I live, parents are blowing up his phone trying to schedule their little darlings back into lessons, while us older folks have been dutifully attending or doing online lessons and paying the whole time. So if you've been doing that all this time and you've got the 3:30 slot and you like it, that's where you stay. This matters because of Guitar Karen. Guitar Karen's son used to take guitar lessons, but she pulled him out for the last 9 months or so. In-school classes are starting up, and Guitar Karen wants as little to do with her kid as possible, so she has apparently enrolled him in every possible after-school activity that exists. I know this because my teacher rolls his eyes as our lesson is about to begin because his phone is ringing like crazy. I thought it might be an emergency or something, so when he returned to the room, I said, "Your phone has been going crazy." He normally turns it off during our session, and he just mutters something and turns it off, talking about how this woman has signed her kid up for track, baseball, art, band, and now guitar, and in order to ensure he has something to do every single day of the week, he absolutely must have this 4 o'clock slot. You can imagine where this is going. Guess whose slot that is? Mine. I'm super flexible with regard to the days of the week, just not the time of day, because I work until then. I told him as much, but he's like, no, I'm not moving you, don't worry. He turns off his phone and we continue on with our lesson. Within like 5 minutes, his computer is going ping, 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 and he's like, holy mother of pearl, and shuts the lid. Blissful silence of the remainder of our lesson, until he opens the classroom door, and there stands Guitar Karen, a kind of heavyset woman with her lips pursed like she's gonna give you a kiss, and her brow looking like it has permanently stuck itself in the scowl position, and a Mama Bear t-shirt on. I kid you not. You, she yells at me. Now, I've never seen this lady in my life, but she's got no mask on, so my instinctive reaction is to social distance myself right the heck away from her. But she just Godzilla stomps her way in, knocking over a music stand and sending papers everywhere. She turns and shouts to the teacher, "Why won't you give my son this time spot? He needs it. You need to reschedule your other students and stop singling me out because my son has other activities." The poor guy can't get a word in edgewise. She's standing in the doorway, so I can't leave. She looks me up and down. Me, who is very much a t-shirt and jeans kind of lady and is wearing a shirt that says, I like heavy metal, coffee, cats, and maybe 3 people, and is like, I bet you don't even have a job. You're probably some washed-up college dropout. Why'd you pick this time slot anyways? Is it because you knew someone like me needed it? You need to give it to my son. I also can't say a darn word because this woman just won't shut up. Now, let me reiterate that my teacher is the chillest guy on the planet, but he nearly passed last year from sepsis on top of the whole lockdown thing. So he's really understandably upset when someone gets in your face and is poking at your chest with their long-nailed finger and spraying insults without a mask on. He gets between me and her and says, "You need to back up or get out." They take their confrontation out into the hallway. He tells me to go ahead and leave, and he'll handle her. I hear him tell this lady, "Listen, Love Spain has been with me for years, and I'd better never hear you insult her or any of my other students ever again. Your behavior is disgusting, and you need to leave the premises now before I call security." We don't have security in the building, but she doesn't need to know that. He was so fired up, I think he could have landed her flat on her back in that moment. She turns completely meek and is like, "What about lessons for my son?" And at this point, the teacher was like, "Absolutely not." And she's like, "But he needs this." And the teacher said, "Not my problem," and acted as if he were dialing security on his phone. She scuttled out of there as I was leaving the parking lot. I wanted to give my teacher the biggest high five. He later told me he didn't hear from her since then, and he thinks this isn't the last encounter. I imagine she's the type of person that will come down there every weekday at that time to berate whichever poor student has that spot because her son obviously needs it. Speaking of guitar, do you play any instruments yourself? If so, what are they? Please let us know. I used to sing often. I was told I had a beautiful voice. Would I be the jerk for having a Star Wars themed wedding? My fiance, 26 female, and I, 27 male, recently got engaged on Valentine's Day 2021. We're hoping to get married in the next 2 years, so almost every conversation we have at the moment is about wedding planning. Star Wars has been a huge influence on my life ever since I was a kid. I've watched all the movies more times than I could possibly count, and it's something nearly all of my family and friends enjoy too. So when I was thinking of wedding planning ideas, it seemed obvious that we should be doing something Star Wars related. I've been brainstorming ideas, and I have some really great themed ideas. For example, blue milk drinks to serve our guests, hiring stormtroopers to party and dance, Jedi robes for all of my groomsmen, playing Across the Stars for the first dance. While I have more typically nerdy interests, my fiancé isn't really interested in most movies or games. She's very much a typical girly girl, and the type of person who has been planning her wedding since she was very young. She has some very specific ideas about what our wedding should look like, much more formal and glamorous than I'd imagined, and her vision definitely doesn't include lightsabers. The problem is that my fiancé really doesn't want anything Star Wars related at our wedding at all. All of my suggestions so far have been shot down without further discussion. One solution I suggested was that we could plan half the wedding, like she handles the ceremony and I plan the reception. That way we could both have what we want. However, my fiancé says that plan would make me the jerk Because even having a Star Wars themed reception would be an embarrassment in front of everyone we know. From my perspective, this is my wedding too, and I should get to decide at least half of the day. While money isn't much of an issue, we share finances, so I'm paying enough to get a say too. Am I the jerk for wanting a Star Wars themed wedding, even though my fiance really doesn't? Well, who do you agree with? OP or his fiance? Please let us know. I love me some Star Wars, but if you had insisted on us having a Star Wars wedding, I would have put you out with the dogs, Reddit boy. I've been waiting 20 years for this. I don't care if you're vegan. Hi, so I'm not one to waste any time, and we'll jump right into the context. It is a bit long though. You've probably seen this label on your diet sodas and sugarless gum. Well, that's for me. I'm a 20-year-old guy living with a medical condition called PKU for short. To sum it up, I've lived my whole life on a low-protein diet since the day I was born. That means no meat, animal byproducts, eggs, dairy, etc., nuts, grains, soy, beans, and more. My body won't process a protein called PHE. It builds up in my body as waste, which it wastes out by basically turning it into a neurotoxin and causing brain damage. I've been on medication for it for just over a year now. To dumb it down, the medication is supposed to replace the chemical in my body that should be there to break down PHE so that I can eat properly. The medication has been working for almost a month now. So far, I've been allowed to increase my total protein allowance to 45 grams of protein, up from the measly 5 I've been limited to my whole life, and we're still testing to see how far we can push it. Here's to a new chapter. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but onto the story. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time at various grocery stores in my area, just aisle shopping and trying to figure out what foods I can now eat and what I still can't. In this case, I was at Wingco, standing in the frozen foods area. I haven't yet introduced meat fully into my life, for personal reasons, so I was looking at the vegan meat substitutes. I grabbed an orange chicken prep bowl and started to head down the aisle where I was cut off by Karen. Now, she wasn't a standard-looking Karen. Her hair went down to the middle of her back, and there wasn't any obvious dye job, but she did emanate the aura of a Karen. Meat is wrong, you know. I sigh. Well, it's your lucky day. This isn't meat. I tried to shove past her, but she bumped me back. Red meat, poultry, fish, it's all the same, she shouted at me. Knee, facepalm. No, ma'am. What I mean is she cut me off before I could tell her it was a vegan substitute. Don't you ma'am me, brat. She swung her purse at me and I stepped back to dodge it. But I'm a big guy, 6'5" and 285 pounds, so I wasn't hard to miss. I stumbled back and ran into one of the freezer doors, luckily not breaking it. I sighed and just collected myself before walking off down the other way of the aisle. I eventually lost her after making a lot of maze-like turns and went home without another incident. Insurance company gave me a check for damage to my new car, then took it back. This happened in 2015. At the time, I was 20 and started taking my first steps into the real world of being an adult. I got my first job and bought my first used car. My commute took me through the 57 to 60 interchange, also known as the worst bottleneck in California at the time, and 8th worst in the US. For those not from around here, basically those two freeways merge for about a mile and a half, 2 kilometers or so. Then they split into 2 freeways again. Everyone at the 57 always wants to get on the 60 and vice versa. The result is a cluster of lane merges for a little over a minute, with everyone moving at 60 to 70 miles per hour. And of course, there's always that one jerk who realizes he got in the wrong lane and needs to cut over all the lanes on the freeway to do so. I had got my first used car the day before. I was borrowing my dad's spare car before this point, but this was my first car in my name. My mom took some pictures of it before I left for work. Once I got to that interchange, a motorcycle gang started splitting lanes on either side of me, easily 15 to 20 of them, and it felt like they weren't going to stop coming. One of them decided to switch lanes and cut off the car in front of me. They braked hard. I braked hard. The girl behind me, on her phone, didn't brake as hard. She rear-ended my new, used car. The dude behind her rear-ended her. I had no idea what to do. It was my first time in an accident, so I pulled over as much as I could to the shoulder, which was barely existent. A tow truck driver saw the accident and called highway patrol for us, and I got the name and insurance details for the girl who hit me. The dude behind her stopped initially, but when I tried to get his details as well, he said, "This car is a rental," and left the scene without giving me any info. The girl's PT Cruiser was totaled. My car had some scuffed paint and a large dent in the rear bumper, which I later found out extended all the way to the metal spare tire holder. I waited around for the gruff highway patrol officer to show up, who had very little patience with me. I didn't even know what the lane numbers were, and chastised both of us for letting the guy in the rental leave. My dad helped me file a claim through his insurance company, since I hadn't even gotten insurance set up yet, due to having the car for not even 24 hours and all. The police report said the girl was at fault. My dad's insurance contacted the girl's insurance, AAA. I got my car inspected at the place AAA told me to go to. It came to about $800, and AAA cut me a check for $800. I cashed the check, waited for it to clear, bought a new computer with the money, and everyone was happy. Or so I thought. I got a call while I was at work from the dad of the girl who hit me. A series of calls, actually. The dad claimed that the damage to my car was pre-existing and says he asked AAA not to pay me since he didn't think it was that badly damaged. I laughed it off. If the person at fault in an accident could just say, "Oh, I don't want to raise my rates, don't pay out," then there wouldn't be a need for insurance. It was just idle, empty threats from someone who suddenly saw their rates spike. Then I was buying lunch a couple days later and my card was declined. It was crazy. My card shouldn't have been declined since I'm very good about keeping on top of all that. I checked my bank account and it had negative $600. I wasn't sure what happened at first, but then I saw that AAA took the $800 check out of my bank account without notifying me because the dad disputed it and they believed him, despite the photographic evidence I gave of the car being in pristine condition before the accident. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any money for gas or food. I called AAA and they basically told me to buzz off and that I needed to take them to court if I disagreed. My dad was in the middle of a small claim suit against his former employer at the time, so I asked him about how lawyers worked, and my dad had his lawyer looked into it for me. Turned out, what AAA insurance did to me, giving me money, letting it settle, then taking it back, was illegal and equivalent to knowingly writing a bad check, with some pretty stiff penalties and fees. The lawyer mailed the letter, and within days I got a call from the local AAA branch apologizing and trying to settle to avoid a lawsuit. They cut me a deal. They would give me $1,600 if I agreed to drop everything and not sue them. So I agreed, and the very next morning, I had a AAA insurance truck show up at my doorstep to drop off a $1,600 check. I wish I knew if they went after the girl's dad or not. That's as much as I know about this story. To this day, I refuse to even consider AAA insurance after that BS, but at least I came out of it $1,600 richer. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have accepted the $1,600 settlement or sued them? Please let us know. I'd definitely have sued them. I'm no lawyer, but I've got a feeling they would have had to pay out much more if they'd been sued. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that his crush dislikes him because he's a jerk, not because he's too smart? So I have a younger brother, he's 13, who is a child prodigy. I won't give too many details, but he's well known in the academic circles of our country and attends an institute of higher education. Naturally, people are impressed with his intelligence, and he's quite popular and makes friends easily. Our parents dote on him and have never told him no. As a result, he has become very arrogant, condescending, and disrespectful to people he deems below him. That's just about everyone. Lately, he's been openly talking to a girl he's crushing on, and much to his dismay, she's quite unimpressed with him. He often complains to my parents and I about his failed attempts to befriend her. I understand why she dislikes him. On one occasion, he invited her over for a school project, and I overheard their interaction. He was constantly talking over her, dismissing her ideas, and even calling them stupid. 99% of the time, he was talking about himself and his accomplishments, being in the news articles, his future plans, etc. The poor girl obviously seemed uncomfortable. He quizzed her about her career aspirations, and when she answered, he proceeded to point out it's a bad career path. Today, he was once again complaining about her and said that she's obviously intimidated by his superior intellect. He claimed that all girls only like stupid guys and that women are emotional. Sadly, my parents agreed and kept assuring him that she was obviously uncomfortable with the fact that he's so accomplished and awesome. After hearing this nonsense many times, I finally told him that his crush dislikes him because he behaves like an obnoxious know-it-all jerk. I explained that he'd probably have a chance if he showed some modesty instead of talking down on her so much. So my parents obviously think I'm the jerk for saying this. They said that it was horrible of me to say this to a 13-year-old and that he's just a kid. I told them that he needs to realize that his personality is becoming a problem and that his crush dislikes him because he's a jerk, not because he's too smart. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or is their brother? Please let us know. Definitely the little brother. Won't be long now until that neckbeard starts growing in. Dealing with scam calls. Please call the cops on me. Like most of us with a landline, cheaper than TV and internet in my Northeast US region. Don't judge. I was getting a ton of spam calls, all about my car warranty, which I never had/purchased, my wife's student loans, who never went to college, IRS collections, energy sales, etc. You name it, they called. Well, we decided to start picking up and harassing the scammers. Big mistake. They don't take you off their call lists. Instead, they start to spoof your number so that your number shows up on caller ID for everyone they call. It got so bad that we changed our voicemail from, "Hi, you've reached OP's last name. Please leave a message," to, "If you received a call from us and don't recognize our number, it's a scam. Please report this to the local police as we have reported it to our police and nothing has changed. Scammers are taking us all and nothing will change if we ignore the calls." Yes, it was that bad. We were receiving 10 plus voicemails per day, most threatening. "Stop calling. Go love an animal. I'm calling the police," etc. We turned off our ringer, disconnected our phone so only our fax machine/printer picked up, and hoped for the best to no avail. Thus, I started the "I don't work here lady" approach. I had a few calls that I picked up during this time frame, and the "I don't work here lady" calls were surprisingly wholesome. A typical call transcript, paraphrased of course, is below. Phone rings. Me. "Hello?" Caller. "Stop calling me." Me. "Hey, I know this isn't what you expect, but I think you've been had by scam calls. They're spoofing my number to call you, and I've reported it to my local police. I made the mistake of answering and trying to give them a hard time, so now they spoof my number to call others and punish me. You can Google it and verify my story. Just don't answer their calls no matter what you do. Also, please call your local police and report my number and the calls so we can get these calls to stop. My name is OP, and I live in this town. I am just as sick of these calls as you are. Please report my number to your police. Maybe then there will be some legislature or pressure on the phone companies to stop this nonsense." Caller. "Oh, hey, sorry. I just get so many of these calls, and I'm frustrated beyond belief. Sorry to bother you." Except for Karen's. But the rest of the conversation on my part remained the same. Me. "Seriously, report my number to the police and block it. We have no prior business, and let your phone company know as well. I'm with this phone provider, and the only way they will make changes is if we all complain enough so that they have to deal with it. I'm happy to speak with local police about the issue, and just for the record, I do not want any information from you. Let's deal with this stuff guerrilla style." Conversations from that point typically ended with apologies and mutual understanding, or promises to call the police and report my number, to which I always reiterated, "Please do. This is how we can make the world a better place," or some similar sentiment. Maybe not the most extreme "I don't work here lady," but I hope you enjoyed the read. I'm happy to answer questions and will provide any insight or clarification requested. Edit. Okay, wow, I didn't expect this to blow up overnight like it did. Thank you, kind strangers, for the awards. Let me address some of the common questions or comments that I've received. 1. This is my landline, and changing the number only shuffles my spam calls to someone else, and someone else's spam to me. The phone company puts a shiny "complaint resolved" sticker on their books, and nothing actually changes. Also, have you ever changed your phone number? How many people have your current number? It's a royal pain and not worth the effort. I'd rather spend the same amount of time talking to other people of this crap, and maybe they will talk to others. Eventually, something might change because the people took action. 2. Why didn't I report it to the phone company? I did, and they basically told me, "We get this complaint a lot. There isn't anything we can do about it aside from changing your number." See point 1 for why I'm not doing that. We were also getting a lot of hateful voicemails, even with my updated answering machine message, so I thought the police should be involved since it could be considered harassment. 3. Spam filtering is enabled through the phone company, and as a landline, my phone isn't running Android or iOS, so the smartphone tricks don't work. I definitely think these are great tools. Unfortunately, blocking all numbers not in your contacts can have adverse effects. The doctor's office calling to verify your appointment using a secondary line at their office. Automated calls from your work/school regarding inclement weather closings. family or friends calling from an unfamiliar number, and so on. For anyone with a landline experiencing the same thing, unplugging your answering machine and setting a fax machine, most multifunction printers nowadays have fax machines built in, to pick up on the second ring seems to stop the calls. I did this for 3 months, and when I plugged my answering machine back in, my inbound call volume was way down, from 10 to 30 calls per day to maybe 1 or 2. Just out of curiosity, do you remember ever having a landline or not? Please let us know in the comments. I bet many of you will remember having them, but not actually purchasing a landline yourself as an adult. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that since I'm paying for my apartment, she doesn't really have a say about anything? Hi, I, 26, female, am finally moving out of my parents' house after 4 long years of living at home. My mom, 61, female, has been nothing but overbearing through the process. I know that this is because she's nervous and scared, and I've truly been trying to be extremely patient with her. My mom really likes to decorate, and she has a really good taste, but it's not my taste. I like things to be more neutral colors when it comes to furniture, while she likes things to be more colorful. I tend to lean towards a Scandinavian style of furniture because it's modern, but not too modern, and it's a sleek, simple design. I decided that I was going to get some stuff from IKEA just because it's affordable and I like the style. I found a pull-out couch that I liked in light gray. Ever since I showed it to my mom a couple of weeks ago, she's been constantly telling me that it was an ugly couch and that I shouldn't get it. We went to IKEA last week to buy it, and my mom was still protesting me getting the couch and telling me that it was ugly. We weren't able to buy it though because the card system was down, but we went and looked at it. My parents, younger brother, and I were talking about the trip to IKEA later that day. My mom started going off about how the couch I wanted was ugly and how she still thought I should get a different one. I was incredibly fed up with her constantly saying it was ugly. I said since it's my apartment and I'm paying for the couch, you don't really have a decision on what goes into my apartment. She got mad and started telling me that I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to setting up an apartment. I said that she's done nothing but say that everything I picked out is ugly, and that if she wanted a say in what goes into my apartment, she could either pay for a couch or help me pay rent. My mom then went off and told me that I was being extremely ungrateful after she took the time out of her day and drove me to IKEA. She insisted that she come with me after I told her I wanted to go alone. I said it doesn't matter, I still have the final say. My mom then went off about how I have terrible taste in furniture. I cut her off and said I'm tired of talking about this stupid couch with you because it always ends in an argument. It's my decision and I'm getting the couch. My dad ended up speaking to my mom after she stormed off to the kitchen and made her apologize. He said that I was right. If she wanted to say, she'd have to financially contribute, but I made it clear that I don't want that. He also pointed out to my mom that because of lockdown, it's affecting their business negatively. They really couldn't afford to do that, and that I also expressed that as being part of the reason why I didn't want them to help financially. Even though she apologized, she's still kind of upset. So, am I the jerk for telling my mom that since she wasn't helping financially, she couldn't have a say in what went into my apartment? Edit. I just want to post up here a few things. 1. A few people have asked why I let her come. As I said above, I didn't want her to come, but she insisted. 2. My parents will not be getting a key at all. I'm moving several states away, and it'll be very hard for my mom to just randomly show up. Am I the jerk for putting rules on the money I give? I, 22, female, graduated in nursing at the beginning of December and got a job at the end of December. My parents, early 60s, helped me pay for tuition and housing that scholarships didn't cover. Each semester, they would give me around $5,000 to $6,000. I had a job and worked 20 hours a week to pay for my car insurance, books, and groceries. I currently live at home and now pay for my car insurance, phone bill, water bill, and help with groceries. This is about $300 a month. Throughout college, I have always said once I graduate, I will help my parents pay for my brother's college expenses because they spent a lot of money on my education and I want to give my brother, 20, male, the same opportunities. My parents are older and they want to stop working soon, so I was more than happy to help. They currently pay for his tuition/fees, which comes out to $10,000 a semester, and rent, which is about $650 with utilities. He also gets an allowance of $50 a month because he doesn't have a job. I make about $6,000 each month, and I mostly save my money after bills are paid. I offered to help with rent and buy his books each semester as long as he keeps his GPA above a 3.0. If it goes below a 3.0, I will only pay half of his rent and still buy his books. We all agreed to these rules, especially my parents. This semester, it looks like his GPA will be a 2.7. He shared he will not be able to foot half the rent on his own. I told him to get a job and work at least 10 hours a week so he can pay $100 a month plus his groceries. I will cover the rest, which is basically $550 a month. This wouldn't start until the semester ended in mid-May. He told me it wasn't fair to expect him to get a job while in school, and he's already having a tough time. I told him I understood that it's been hard to learn throughout the lockdown. My last 2 semesters were online learning, but I still worked. I told him my new offer is the only thing I can do to help, or he can go back to the original and pay half like we agreed. He called me controlling and greedy. He hasn't talked to me since. I know I can continue to pay the full amount, but we agreed to the rules, and I even offered a little grace by going from half to $550. My parents agree with me and say they won't help more than they have been. Am I the jerk? Edit. Information I didn't add. 1. My parents did put conditions on financial help for me when I was in school. I had to maintain a 3.0. Originally, my brother had to maintain a 3.5, but I persuaded them to go down to 3.0 because it seemed a little much. 2. I do believe my brother is having a hard time with the lockdown, but related to school, he finds 2 classes boring and doesn't participate or turn in his work. This is why his GPA is low. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her little brother? Please let us know. Getting a job is part of the college experience. $50 a month allowance isn't what we want here. He needs a paycheck. I hope he gets a job. My Karen sister demands to be my realtor. I am a real estate flipper. Early on in my career, I met up with Tina, a realtor of 25 plus years who showed me a home that I ended up not buying. We weirdly hit it off as a sort of mom/daughter vibe. She's about 30 years older than me, and I'm the same age as her daughter, and became sort of a mentor/mentee situation. Tina took me under her wing, taught me half of everything I know, found me deals, found me people to buy my fixed-up places, and basically taught me the ropes. She handles situations I'm still learning to handle, like when a foreclosure auction goes wrong. I'm definitely just starting to learn. Tina is very experienced. The problem: my younger sister, Penny, 26, female, is about to get her real estate license. We were having dinner with our dad, and our dad says to me how great it's going to be when Penny and I are working together. I gave him a confused look. Penny then piped up that once she got her license, she'd be handling all of my flips purchases and sales because she is family. I told her that if I was looking for my own house, sure, I would go with her. For my flips, I work with Tina exclusively because Tina had connections that I did not, such as discount flooring and other such things, and Tina got me a lot of business and sales. Cutting Tina out would basically remove at least 1/3 of my sales and end my discounts at a lot of places as friend of Tina, and I'm not willing to do that, especially in these kinds of times. Also, Tina will stop giving me real estate tips for good flip properties if she's not my realtor. Imagine how rude it would be for me to get a tip from her and then use my sister to buy the property. My sister and dad are now upset with me, and no amount of explaining can make them understand that this is a business decision, and I simply can't afford to burn this bridge. I told Tina what was going on, and Tina so very graciously offered to help mentor Penny, like she has been with me, and Penny was having none of it. Penny is so offended that I would continue to give my business to someone outside the family. I think I've done more than enough to help my sister here, but my father and sister think I'm the jerk. I feel like I might be the jerk because you are supposed to prioritize family, but then again, I feel like it's unreasonable for me to take a huge pay cut and loss of all my resources just so my sister can get sales, which again will be fewer due to Tina's clients not buying them. So, am I the jerk for not hiring my sister to replace Tina? Update. Plot twist. Working with me was not Penny's idea. Our father told her, of course I would hire her when she was out of school. We're family. Penny is a little bit naive and a little bit airheaded is the nicest word I can come up with here. I'm sorry, I love my sister, I promise. It's 1000% plausible to me that she simply just believed my father without coming to me about it. Penny then felt like I reneged on the deal to employ her when she brought it up so casually when we had dinner, as in her mind it was settled and done. She apologized, and we are both annoyed at our father, who caused this communication mess. I plan to talk with him when I'm less salty about it. Penny has said she's sorry for turning down the mentorship idea. I hadn't told Tina because I was hoping Penny would reconsider Tina's offer, and that she only said no because she was angry with me in the moment for breaking my word, but realized I had never given it in the first place, and it was all our father. I'm going to cautiously link Penny and Tina up, but I'm giving Tina a warning about Penny's potential behavior and a complete okay to cut things off if my sister behaves unacceptably. To the person that asked if my father had funded my business, no, but my late mother did. She left me and my sister a significant 25% each part of her assets, which was in the mid six figures for both of us. My dad got the rest, but he has plenty of his own already. He used to love helping us out before Mom passed, but stopped entirely when we received the inheritance from Mom because he said we didn't need any more help, which, fair enough. I've done well with my business. Penny has been smart with her share and invests in the stock market. Our dad has taught her. To everyone calling me an evil flipper, I specialize in foreclosures and homes nobody wants. Homes that can't even get renters. Homes you can't even get financing for because they're so bad. I fix them up and make them habitable homes again, when previously they are not fit for human living. If that's evil, okay. I've evilly expanded the amount of available housing. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you hire your sister to be your realtor or not? Please let us know. No, business and family usually don't mix very well. Just do your job and shut up. No problem. The software company I worked for got acquired. Some people were let go, some were added, and some teams and functions were restructured. Prior to acquisition, we had a multiple hat situation where you basically did whatever was in your capacity. Teams played to each other's strengths, and one person would generally take a client from the first demo right through the configuration, implementing and training phases of the software. Some of us had strengths in technical areas. Others had a decade plus in the client's subject matter. Clients would give us some feedback or wish lists. We'd talk amongst the team about how the functionality could be added or changed, make a functional mock-up, and then bring that to the developmental team for polish and integration into the production code. It worked wonderfully, like 100% positive feedback, and nothing broken when it went to production. We had a good rapport with the dev guys, and some of us were able to write queries or code portions that would save them from having to ask a billion subject matter questions. When we weren't dedicated to a task, we'd handle support calls. Clients would call up, receptionists learned who to pass things to based on clients and the nature of issues, and resolution was typically instantaneous unless the problem required research. Clients loved that, and we had the understanding that if we couldn't resolve their problem right away, it was because we needed to look into it. After the acquisition, the parent company reorganized things into a much more rigid, you have one job type of scenario. The trouble was, with the people they let go, I was the singular remaining source of a lot of the capacities we provided. It left me working with the sales, product improvement/concept, product evangelism, implementation, development, data conversion, and support teams. Initially, I didn't mind. Wasn't any different than my previous role. Things started nicely enough when the company's CEO genuinely asked, "Would you mind helping X team with Y project?" And he'd pick up my travel bar tabs and toss me a day off here and there. It was a fair exchange, and he treated it as though I was doing him a favor. But at some point, all these other departments expected, then demanded my time. Instead of people asking when I could help them on a project, I would just find time blocks added to my schedule for various things. A couple of times, I was supposed to be chairing these meetings and having things prepared, and no one even bothered to tell me. Around this same time, I noticed a lot of recommendations I made when asked for input were being overturned by people in new roles who had no idea what they were talking about. As in literally had no exposure to the subject matter and had never even seen the software, plus no programming/logic or database experience. So my input is demanded but also ignored. And this was causing more demands on my time when things were broken or didn't meet client expectation. Plus, the new dev team I was working with made every excuse not to act unless someone went and confirmed and fetched everything they needed. The external demands on my time had increased, and I had coincidentally hit a few walls with my actual job in that clients were unresponsive and couldn't get me the data or access I needed to complete tasks. But that didn't stop my boss from demanding documentation and results and documentation about the results. There was no such thing as waiting. It's your duty to call and harass the powerless client until whatever third party involved enables whatever we need. I was really unhappy in a job I had previously loved. Every day was worse than the last. And then I got my employee review. It was top notch, and yet I got the same cost of living raise as everyone else. It particularly burned me that the sales guys were getting commission on sales that I had made. At the original company, effort above and beyond was well rewarded. I doubled my starting salary in a few years' time for hard work. Now I was miserable, overdrawn, and got nothing for it. I was having daily arguments with my boss, who was completely indifferent to all my commitments and refused to understand that I couldn't compel third-party companies to do my timely bidding to get client data or access. Out of nowhere, I get a call from the head of data conversions department. He said a few of his people had noticed some high-level solutions to dev or data problems in the team chats come out of some random guy from implementation in no time. Then he was talking to a pre-existing client about converting a set of financial data from a legacy system I had converted some building, code, fire, planning, and police data from, and they asked if they could have me do it specifically because my conversion of their other data was flawless, and I granted them some change requests on the way through to make their lives easier. Simple changes to record type names for easier identification, clip leading spaces or extra zeros so they could put reports in Excel, stuff like that. He said the client wouldn't stop gushing about me, and he was floored to hear that I had done the whole thing myself, where his team typically breaks the responsibilities between 5 or more people. He offered me a position on the spot, and I told him I was interested and I'd think about it. He told me I could start doing some part-time stuff with him a few hours a week if I wanted it that way. Then he told me he saw the BS I was dealing with and said he'd get the other departments off my plate. I liked him right away. My current boss then interrupted our call, seeing me talking to that guy on our in-house phone app, and demanded to know what I was wasting my time on. Then she proceeded to berate me about the open orders and my lack of documentation about their lack of progress. You got time to BS with him, but you can't call a client? I tried to tell her for the millionth time about all the expectations from the other departments, the obligations they leave beyond their allotted time frames, the inability I have to force other companies to do things for us no matter how many times I tell the client. She told me, "I'm sorry with your excuses. Just do your job and shut up." I called the conversions head right back and asked how soon I could transfer to his department full-time. He said, "Yesterday. Man, this is such good news. I was just talking to assistant department manager, and he got excited when I said I think I got you part-time. Take the rest of the day off. Have a beer to celebrate. I'll handle the transfer and we'll see you in the morning." And that was that. I did as my new boss commanded and had a beer to celebrate. A wave of relief came over me after months of tension. The following day, I told the vampire departments and my previous boss in no uncertain terms that I was done helping them. It went unacknowledged and they continued adding things to my calendar, so I deleted them, did my job, and shut up. Things got ugly. I'm not super talented or anything, but I was literally the only person they had for a lot of things, and things went to heck. Most of it requires institutional knowledge I had spent years acquiring, so they couldn't even hire someone to do the things. And rather than come ask me for help, people made demands and attacks. And I got flat out belligerent about it. In an email with the CEO CC'd, the support manager asked why I couldn't be bothered to help them anymore. I said, "For the same reason you can't be bothered to clean the toilets or recable the building. Not my job." Previous boss told me to just do my job and shut up. Take it up with her. The sales/evangelist guys tried to go over my head and asked my new boss if I could do some of their demos. He said, "Sure, if you come over here and do some of his conversions." Numbers tanked for the departments I was previously involved with, support in particular. They went from a 2-hour average resolution time to 8 days. Sales for my product line went down from 85% success to less than 25%. CEO reported that sales dropped over 60% from 85. Don't know the exact. Dev and product went from 100% customer satisfaction to 60. Implementations had been completely unable to install certain components, which led to at least one contact cancellation and demand for a refund. And in true storybook fashion, my previous boss's boss, the one who gave me my previous employee review and who was a childhood friend of the CEO, told me privately that the CEO noticed all the departments unfocused my chi stopped working for suddenly saw their worst numbers in company history. Weird. And asked, "Anything in particular that pushed the guy over the edge?" Previous boss's boss explained that I was upset about the review/raise having nothing to do with the merit or effort, the demand from other departments, unrealistic and impossible expectations, and the idiotic requirements for documentation. So this year and going forward, there are two criteria for yearly raises: individual output and department output. No raises for people with negative performance numbers. Upon that announcement, some department heads up and quit, and others changed positions internally. Meanwhile, I've written a few utilities for my team that have saved thousands of hours of manual work. Our numbers are soaring where they were previously up and down, and my new boss is driving the whole bus full of our laughing butts all the way to the bank. Have you ever had a boss that you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know. You don't count as my boss or anything, but I can't stand you if that counts. Just let my kid take your kid's toys. It'll be easier for me. So my wife has a cousin we'll call Karen. Karen's mom and stepdad are very successful doctors with 40 acres of land and a beautiful house. Karen has always been a spoiled brat, so it's no surprise that Karen's goblin, Stacy, is also a spoiled brat. One day, I had just laid my daughter down for a nap when Karen called to ask if she could bring Stacy over for a playdate. My daughter was notorious for taking long naps, and I told them it wasn't the best time. Karen came over anyway, telling me at the door that they'll just wait for daughter to wake up. What? So they barge in before I can refuse them, and we make light conversation. Stacy busies herself with daughter's toys while I sit through Karen complaining about her latest fight with her baby daddy. After about 40 minutes of small talk, I finally say, well, I don't think daughter's waking up anytime soon, so maybe we should do this another day. Karen looked at her phone and shrugged. We've been here this long. We might as well wait. I insisted daughter would be sleeping for a while longer, and Stacy had started complaining about being hungry. I pushed the issue of them leaving before Karen could ask me to feed her kid. This is where the real trouble began. Stacy had been playing with a set of colorful ponies my daughter was very fond of, and when Karen told her to get ready to leave, Stacy continued to clutch the horses. Karen guided her to the door, horses in hand, and I had to stop them. Hey, sweetie, could you give me daughter's horses before you go? Stacy just held them tighter and turned away from me. I look at Karen, who is just watching the exchange with no intention of getting involved, so I continued to coax Stacy into giving the horses as nicely as I could. Stacy got more upset and turned further away from me the more I spoke, so I finally straightened up and gestured toward her while staring at Karen, silently demanding help. Karen just sighed and said, Stacy, could you leave daughter's toys here? But mommy, I like them. Karen looked at me and shrugged. I don't think she's gonna let them go. Maybe you should just get new ones for your daughter. I had to literally bite my tongue to keep from lashing out at Karen at that moment. Taking hold of the horses with one hand, I gently informed Stacy that I would be taking them. She yelled, "No!" and tried to tear them away from my grasp, but I firmly and smoothly took them from her arms. It wasn't a yank. I was trying to be nice this whole time, even though I wanted to swat that entitled brat and stick her nose in the corner. Stacy started wailing, and Karen glared at me, swooping her kid into her arms. She's going to be like this all the way home now. I just shrugged as Karen cooed at Stacy to get her to stop screaming. You should probably take her home then, before she wakes up my daughter. I was no longer being nice to Karen. You should let her keep the dang horses. Karen glared at me again, doing the dance of the desperate parent. I opened the door for her and gestured toward it. They belong to my daughter. You can get some for Stacy yourself. Karen left grumbling about me being a selfish jerk, with Stacy still screaming in her arms. Daughter slept for another hour, and in that time I got a phone call from my wife asking what had happened. Apparently, Karen texted the whole family that I had done something horrible and that I'm just a fat bully. My wife knew none of that was true and wanted the real story. Things have kind of smoothed over with her family now, but every time Karen tries her crap, little fights break out all over again because I'm the only one who will call her out. I have other stories if anyone is interested. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have let her keep the horses or not? Please let us know. No, and I wouldn't have let them return to my home either. Talk to my boss. This happened last weekend. While I was only involved from the sidelines, okay, I may have started it unintentionally. I was there through the whole thing. The cast. We've got me, we've got Tall Guy, and Karen. I went to my local blue big box store to pick up a few grocery items. Not a big trip, but it had to be done. Now I'm a short woman, 4'11", and it never ceases to amaze me that most of the things that I want or need are always on a top shelf designed for people who are at least 5'10", from my limited point of view. The only way that I can reach these items is if I have something long enough to rake it off the top shelf, or I use the shelves as a climbing wall. Considering that I'm not a lightweight by any stretch of the imagination, I don't try climbing in favor of keeping the shelves upright. I swung down an aisle and found what I was looking for on the top shelf. Since the item was in a glass bottle, raking it off the shelf seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. I stood there for several minutes trying to decide if this was something I could do without, when I spotted a very tall guy. Tall guy had his own shopping cart, was not dressed like a store employee, jeans, black button-up shirt, and no blue vest, and was looking at his shopping list. My interest was in the fact that he was towering at around 6'3". I approached him. "I'm sorry to bother you." Tall guy had this look on his face like he's ready to say, "I don't work here, lady." Tall guy, "Yes?" I tried making myself as meek and apologetic as I could so that he didn't think he had encountered one of those people. "Can I borrow your height to help me get something off the top shelf?" Tall guy grinned, nodded, and asked what he could get for me. I pointed at the item, and without so much as a struggle, he retrieved it. I smiled politely and thanked him profusely for helping me. I put the item in my cart, and he started to walk away. Then she made her presence known. She was about 5'4" and had on heels that were easily 4 or 5 inches high, around 45 years old, and wore a blue sparkly dress that was at least 3 sizes too small and so short if she took a deep breath, we'd see her belly button. She honestly looked like she was going to a nightclub, not grocery shopping at 1:30 in the afternoon. "Karen, now that you are finished with her," she said this while looking down at me as if I smelled like a week-old fish, "you can get these for me." Karen attempted to hand Tall Guy her shopping list, but he put his hands up and backed up a bit. Tall Guy, "I don't work here. I was only helping get something." "Exactly. You helped her, and now you'll help me." I swear, she batted her eyelashes at him. Tall Guy, "No, I helped her, and now I'm going to finish my own shopping." Karen rolled her eyes and tried to shove her list at him. "I'm not stupid. Of course you work here. Why else would you?" Again, she scrunched her face in disgust. "Help her?" Tall Guy, "Do you really believe that people who work for a living are only working to serve you?" Karen couldn't decide if she should nod or shake her head. I could almost hear the gears in her brain strain for a response. "It's your job to do what I tell you to do." Tall Guy, "No, it's my job to do what my boss tells me to do. And not once in 14 years has my boss ever told me I had to do your shopping." "Oh yes, it's your job. You work here, so you work for me, and I'm telling you to get these items on my list. Now." Tall Guy stepped closer to her, reached in his shirt pocket where he had his white clerical collar, snapped it on, and plastered on the biggest grin. "In that case, you need to get down on your knees and talk to my boss. I think the two of you should have plenty to discuss." Karen's face went deathly white. She took very fast shuffling steps out of the aisle. I just stood there with my mouth open. Tall Guy removed the clerical collar and tucked it back in his shirt pocket. Tall Guy saw my amazement and adoration of what he had just done and grinned. "Oh, don't look so impressed. I'm not clergy. I do improv comedy with a small social group of friends." He patted his shirt pocket. "This week's theme is church. I just came to get snacks on my way there." Now I'm more impressed. I so want to be like you when I grow up. Tall Guy and I parted ways, and I didn't see him or Karen again. For some reason, however, I have this strange desire to watch stand-up comedy on TV. This name tag isn't just a cute accessory. Context: I work at the infamous Bullseye Mart. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the uniform there. Khaki pants, red shirt of some kind, name tag, closed-toe shoes. You get the idea. I'm lucky that the mart I work at is pretty chill on uniform. As long as the outer layer is 90% of some shade of red and the pants aren't ripped to high heaven and everything is work appropriate, we can wear whatever we want, including jeans. Incident: so it's a warm summer day at work and I'm wearing my coolest work appropriate attire. Lightest pair of jeans I have, sneakers, and a red and white striped t-shirt, and a name tag displaying my name and the store's logo on it. Since I'm working self-checkout that day, I'm also outfitted with the right equipment, namely a walkie-talkie, a small portable scanner, and keys that jingle every step I take. Note: the keys are the only thing slightly hard to spot just by looking at me. The walkie and scanner are pretty bulky. So for the last 5 minutes, I've been running every which way helping the small crowd that descended upon the self-scan lanes. so it might appear to the unobservant that I'm some clueless customer trying to find a certain candy bar on the lane or something. Finally, the line calms down enough and no one needs my immediate attention, so I walk over and stand next to the woman waiting in line for the self-scan. I exhale and enjoy my brief moment of peace when the woman, the Karen of the story, gives a surprised, "Wow!" Me, thinking she was talking about the long line we just had. I know, nice summer days bringing a big crowd, huh? Karen, "I can't believe you just cut me." Me, confused, "I didn't cut you." "Yes, you did. I watched you walk over, grab a candy bar, and then stand in front of me. You cut me in line." I just stood there, confused, and no candy bar in hand. Then it clicked. "Ma'am, I work here." Karen kinda scoffed. "A likely story." I looked down at my bulky walkie and scanner and my name tag. "Very likely." Karen rolled her eyes and walked away, muttering something about how rude some people can be. She then proceeded to get into the only other open lane, which had 3 people ahead of her. One looking like a fairly large order. I kinda shrug and share a "people will be people" look with the next guy in line. But it's not over yet. About 15 minutes later, the cashier, I'll call her Alia, waved me down. So I walked up to her side of the lane while still keeping an eye on the self-scan. Me, "What's up, Alia?" Alia, "The machine won't take this lady's coupon." I glanced over and Karen and I lock eyes. She scoffs and rolls her eyes. I ignore her and glance at the coupon Alia's holding. Me, "Oh, here's the problem. The coupon's expired." Alia, "Just by a day though." Me, handing the coupon back to Alia. "We can still honor it. Just enter the price change manually and put the coupon with the others." "I don't know how to do that." Karen, groaning, "Then call someone over to show you how to do it and stop wasting my time." Me, "I can show you." Alia, "Really?" Karen, at the same time as Alia, "You can?" Me, "Yeah, it's pretty simple." So I show Alia how to enter a coupon manually and what to do with it afterwards. She thanks me, and I'm about to head back to my post when Karen looks at me absolutely flabbergasted. "Wait, so you do work here?" Me, slightly confused. "Have for a couple years now. Why do you ask?" "You do work here? And that's not a Halloween costume?" I just kind of stare at the woman, and Alia later told me I looked exactly like the one meme where the math is floating around a woman's head. Then I told the Karen, "Why would I be wearing a Halloween costume in the middle of July?" Am I the jerk for auditioning for the role my friend really wanted? My 20 female friend, 20 female, is an aspiring actress. Over the last year, all of her auditions were online. However, things have started picking up lately. Last week, she had an in-person audition and I went with her. We had plans that day, so it was more convenient to tag along and hang out after. She was excited because this was a big company and it would give her a lot of exposure, good pay, etc. I was waiting for her outside when someone from the casting team came out and started chatting with me. They asked what I'm here for and if I'm interested in auditioning for an exciting role, my friends. At first, I was reluctant because I'm not into acting, so I had no interest. However, the person managed to convince me and promised great pay. So I said yes, but not because I genuinely believed I'd get the role. I just thought it would be a funny story to tell my friend. The audition itself was easy, and they were all super nice. I left and had no expectations I'd get the role. I mean, I don't have a portfolio, and my only acting experience was in a school production many years ago. I didn't try to hype up my experience, and I was very honest. When I told my friend about it, she jokingly said that I'm now her competition, so she has to watch out. Merely a couple of hours after we left, I received a call from the same guy with an offer. I was in shock and asked if he got the correct number. My friend was with me, and she was in even bigger shock. I honestly thought he miscalled me and wanted to speak to her because it seemed so ridiculous. She has far more acting experience and seemed confident about her audition. She got extremely angry and said that I purposely sabotaged her chances and that I'm not even interested in an acting career since I'm in STEM. She accused me of being a fake friend and evil. She was so angry that she asked me to drop her off at the nearest bus stop so she could go home. We had a huge argument the next day, and she said some pretty messed up things. She said that I was only hired because of what I look like, and that this type of preferential treatment is unfair to actors. She even said that I obviously did something with that guy to get the role, which, I haven't. So now my friends are split. Some are saying that I am the jerk for auditioning and lessening her chances of success, They said that this gig obviously meant a lot to her and that I should have been supportive instead of derailing her career. Others are saying that I'm not a jerk whatsoever because I just did it for fun and had no serious expectations or ill intent. They said that it's ultimately up to the casting people to decide who they want and that I might have left a better impression. I rejected the offer. So, am I the jerk for what I did? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. That friend doesn't sound like much of a friend to me. What are you doing running around with that Karen? Am I the jerk for feeding my nieces nothing but junk food for 3 days? I, 28 female, don't work Fridays, and my brother and his wife, both 34, wanted to spend a long weekend away at their beach house. So they asked me to watch their daughter, 5 and 7. I've never had the girls overnight before. My parents usually take them, but didn't feel safe because of lockdown. But they're both awesome and I enjoy them, so I said yes. They didn't pay me anything, but we're family and do favors for each other frequently, so I wasn't expecting it. I'm a vegan, and I've never had them over for more than one consecutive meal, and I've always just fed them easy junk food, like a frozen pizza or boxed mac and cheese. I asked my brother what I should feed them this time, and he said they'd be fine just eating whatever I made for myself. Okay, fair enough. They got here Thursday evening after dinner. Friday morning, I made fruit smoothies, and they were happy with that. Lunchtime, I made them peanut butter and jelly. Dinner is where problems started, and predictably so, in my opinion. I made a chickpea quinoa dish, and the girls absolutely would not touch it. I wasn't about to force them to eat something that looked gross to them, so we went to a McDonald's drive-thru. The rest of my meals were going to be as weird and gross, their words. So the next morning, I gave them fruit smoothies for breakfast again, and then we went to the grocery store and I got chicken nuggets, mac and cheese, and frozen pizza. And that's what I fed them for the rest of their visit. They usually eat better than that. My brother and sister-in-law cook almost every night, but it's not like they never get that kind of food, which I think is an important detail here. The girls went home Sunday after dinner. I guess they told my brother they ate nothing but junk all weekend, because he called me this morning and started yelling at me about how I pumped them full of garbage all weekend, and now they're going to think they just get to go to McDonald's whenever they won't eat their dinner. I explained they really wouldn't eat the food I made myself, and he said I should have called him to ask what to do, or at the very least cook them something from scratch that was healthier. I got annoyed and said I did my best. A few days of junk food won't hurt them, and I'm not a short-order chef. We argued for a while longer until I eventually told him to find someone else to watch his kids next time, or at least prep their meals since he's so particular, and then I hung up. I don't have kids, and I really did my best. Am I the jerk? Karen mother-in-law demands to move in with us. To preface, my 40 female, husband 41 male, and I have been together since we were 15 and 16 respectively. We were married at 18 and 19, and we had our first kid when we were 19 and 20. Our second kid was born 4 years later. My in-laws, mother-in-law in particular, has never liked me and has made it very clear that I am no part of the family. She would purposely exclude me from family trips and holidays and celebrations, and if I did show up, I would get the cold shoulder. So I stopped going to events, stopped sending holiday gifts, and basically went no contact with his entire family, while he went low contact with them. Now that both of our kids are grown and ready to leave the nest, our son lives with his boyfriend of 4 years and is training to be an electrician. Our daughter is going to college 2 hours away for nursing, and we're helping her find and pay her own apartment near campus. My husband and I decided to downsize the house and get something with 3 bedrooms. Something for just me and my husband when we get ready to retire. We will have one room designated for the kids if and when they come to visit. Both of our kids are in full support of this and have been keeping an eye out for properties we would be interested in. My husband told mother-in-law our plan, and she's now upset. She was under the impression that when our daughter left for college in the fall, that her and father-in-law would be moving in with us, and we would be taking care of them. My husband was confused and asked why they would think that, and she stated that as the oldest, it is his responsibility to take care of the elders in the family. Father-in-law is retired and has been for almost 5 years. Mother-in-law is also retired and gets a pension as well. Neither one of them are hurting financially, and they do not suffer from any medical conditions that would require care. Them living here would be an absolute mental and physical burden on both of us, but mostly me, as I would be the one doing most of the caring. My husband and I discussed it, and both agree that this is insane, and both told mother-in-law and father-in-law that whatever they have planned, they will have to find someplace else to go. Mother-in-law is now calling us, our kids, and other family members to try and get us to change our minds. My kids, who should not be involved in this drama at all, both agree that it's our time now and that we need to sell this house before they show up on the porch. Everyone else is calling us selfish and telling us that we owe it to mother-in-law and father-in-law to take care of them during their old age. So, are we the jerks for telling mother-in-law that they cannot come live with us? Edit. I apologize for not adding this in the post. My husband noticed after I typed that I excluded it. In my husband's culture, it's very common for adult kids to have their parents move in with them when they get old/retire. Update. Thank you for all of your comments and replies. We are both relieved that somehow we are not the jerks or that we are being petulant kids. My husband is going to call his parents tonight and tell them that their treatment, mother-in-law in particular, is the reason why they are not welcome to live here with us, and that is our final answer. Husband will suggest that if they need care, we will gladly find them an assisted living facility, but we, more specifically I, will not be taking care of them, and it's because, as all of you have pointed out, I am not family. So thank you all for helping us, and we really appreciate it. And to answer one last question, yes, my husband is Asian and I am white. My mother-in-law refers to me as White Devil. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let the mother-in-law and father-in-law move in with you or not? Please let us know. Sure, I'd put a doghouse out back for her. Bakery had my mom's car towed, so I got the business closed down. This happened about 8 years ago in 2013, and when I tell people this story, I get mixed reactions, so I figured why not tell Reddit. My mom and I decided to go out to lunch one day. We drove until we found a lot that's business did not appear to be open at the time. My mom pulls into the lot and parks in a spot. We both walk over and investigate the business's window. It was a pastry shop for purposes later in the story. The lights are not on, the door is locked, and there's a sign that says closed right behind the door. We conclude that they are closed and went to eat our lunch. We finished eating about a little over an hour later and come back to find out that our car was missing, but now the bakery was open. My mom and I walk inside of the bakery and ask if they had seen our car. The owner, with a very stern tone and attitude, said, "Yeah, I had it towed because it was taking up spots for potential customers. You should have come inside to ask me first." My mom responds that we did attempt to see if she was open and even buy something to see if we could park there for an hour or so. She calls us liars and said she had been open all day and we never attempted to ask. My mom just basically said we tried and that it was wrong for her to tow us with so many other spots still available. The owner said something back to my mom that really upset her and made her cry. All while this was going on, I was taking mental notes that this bakery/pastry shop was having ventilation/insulation work being done. The insulation worker, who I can only assume was a random contractor and not a specialist, was doing the work right over the prep table for food, all while smoking a cigarette. As I go to console my mom, I turn around and tell the lady her sign still says closed, like when we originally came to the door. She storms up to me, picks up the sign, and slams it around to open. "We are open now." I calmed my mom down and we eventually got the car back from the tow company and got home. Once we got home, I was angry that lady made my mom cry, so I wanted revenge. I called the health department for the city. I say exactly what I wrote above to the guy on the phone, who puts me on hold and tells me to repeat everything I said word for word to his director. I tell the director the story. Nothing about the car being towed, obviously. I was a concerned citizen. She verifies the address and location with me 3 separate times. Yes, the name was X. Yes, it was across the street from this restaurant on this street. She then tells me that she shut down that business the week prior for plumbing issues, insulation, and multiple other infractions. She was told she could not be open and operate a business until the plumbing issue was fixed and approved, told me she would handle it. Later that night on the news, that business was being shut down for good for all the infractions, and I could see my mom look so confused and happy at the same time, like karma worked for her that quickly. Told my mom years later, and she loved it. Speaking of pastries, what are your favorite types of pastries to eat? Please let us know. Do Pop-Tarts count? I love the strawberry ones after being put in the toaster. Follow the student's education plan to the letter? Don't mind if I do. I'm a high school teacher. One of the things the teachers deal with are individual education plans, IEPs. An IEP is for a student with disabilities, learning, developmental, etc. An IEP will outline exactly what accommodations a student is entitled to. These are very necessary and very important legally binding documents which outline a student's disability as it relates to academic performance and provides accommodations to help the student succeed in school. Common accommodations include may use a calculator on math tests, may have test questions read aloud to him or her, may receive extra time on timed tests, and may take tests in the resource room instead of the academic classroom. It is that last accommodation that is important for this story. If you are unfamiliar, a resource room is the classroom of the special education teacher. While the special education students spend 90% of their day in the same classrooms as other students, they will occasionally return to their special ed teacher's room, the resource room, for things like study hall, homeroom, or to take a test. The special ed teacher assigned to help monitor the student's progress is known as the teacher of record, or TOR for short. Billy was one of my students last year. He was a bright, outgoing, and very active student. However, Billy also did have a few learning disabilities that caused him to struggle in class. Because of these disabilities, may take tests and quizzes in the resources room instead of the academic classroom was a very important part of his IEP. This cut down on distractions and was to help Billy concentrate on his test. After about half a year of Billy doing well in class, he unexpectedly failed a test in my class. The TOR, Mrs. Ratchet, was really upset that Billy didn't do well on that test. She monitored his grades through our online system, so she knew he failed the test less than 10 minutes after I had graded it. In order to get to the bottom of why, she stopped by my classroom after the students had gone home for the day. "Mr. Onyx, why did Billy fail his test?" "I'm not sure. He normally does well on the tests, but this one seemed to stump him. I'm going to talk to him about it tomorrow." "Did you follow his IEP?" "Yes, I did. I offered to let him take the test in the resource room, but he elected to take it in class since it was not a long test. It should be noted that IEP accommodations are generally elective, meaning that the student can choose not to use a specific accommodation at any given point if he or she does not wish to. This does not stop him or her from using that same accommodation later. The only time an accommodation is mandatory is if the parents request that it be so. It is reflected in the IEP when that happens, but it is exceedingly rare. "But," Mrs. Ratchet continued, "Billy's IEP states that he gets time and a half on tests." "I'm aware," I explained. "However, this was not a timed test. All students had as much time as they needed. If a student didn't finish during today's class period, they could finish the test tomorrow. All students, including Billy, finished today." "He gets time and a half." "Yes, he does. But as I said, this was not a timed test. There was unlimited time for all students, including Billy." "I'm not going to file a non-compliance report on this, but I want you to know that I expect you, the state expects you, to follow IEPs to the letter. You should not have allowed him to take the test in class. He should have received more time than the other students. You dropped the ball on this one, and I expect it not to happen again." She then stormed out. Now, Billy had chosen to take the test in class, something he very rarely did. I'm not sure why Mrs. Ratchet was so incensed that he hadn't taken the test in her room, since it was Billy's decision, but whatever. As for the time, this was a non-issue. You can't give time and a half for unlimited time, so I ignored that complaint. A few weeks later, Billy had a quiz in my class. This was a very short 10-question quiz. Again, Billy elected to stay in my room. Again, sadly, Billy failed the quiz. That triggered round 2 with Mrs. Ratchet. "What is wrong with you, Mr. Onyx?" she demanded as she stormed into my room the day the quiz grades were being uploaded to our grading system. "Billy should be in my room taking these tests and quizzes." "Billy chose not to. I offered him the opportunity to take the quiz in your room, but he chose not to. I cannot force him." "I'm getting very tired of your disregard for IEPs. I'm going to be filing a non-compliance report with the administration." I knew I had done nothing wrong, so I wasn't worried. As I suspected, the administration dismissed her complaint as being without merit, and I went on my way. Then, about 2 weeks after the complaint was filed and dismissed, I got an updated IEP for Billy. It seems Mrs. Ratchet was not happy about Billy failing tests and quizzes when he took them in the academic classroom as opposed to the resource room. As a result, she called up Billy's parents and, through conference with them, got his IEP changed. Instead of "Billy may take tests and quizzes in the resource room," it now read, "Billy must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record." The last 8 words of that mandate caught my eye, "under the supervision of the teacher of record." This meant that, as TOR, Mrs. Ratchet is now legally mandated to be present in her classroom every time Billy takes a test or quiz. Since special ed has instructional assistants, IA, as well as licensed teachers in the room at all times, it's not usually a problem if the TOR is out of the room, since an IA will be in there. Nope, not anymore. I was still upset at Miss Ratchet for her non-compliance complaint against me, even though it got dismissed. I was also upset at her making demands of me, as if I worked for her. I was following the law, following Billy's IEP, and I would be darned if I was going to let anyone tell me I wasn't. Enter the malicious compliance. Every teacher, including special ed teachers, gets a prep period. These periods are periods in which we do not have a class. I use mine for grading and making copies. Some teachers use them to plan for the extracurricular activities they coach or direct. Mrs. Ratchet, I knew, used hers to hang out down the hall in her classroom of her BFF, a biology teacher with the same prep period as her. If a student had a test or quiz to take, it wouldn't be an issue normally. An IA would be in the room, so the TOR didn't have to be. Well, except for Billy now. You see, Mrs. Ratchet's prep period was the same period in which I had Billy in class. About a week after the new IEP was handed down, I had another quiz in class. Unfortunately for Billy, as I explained to him, his parents and Mrs. Ratchet had decided that he had to take quizzes and tests in Mrs. Ratchet's room. He wasn't happy, but his IEP was not vague on this point. Knowing Mrs. Ratchet wouldn't be in the classroom, I took Billy down to Mrs. Ratchet's room myself, having my own IA, who was only in my room because of Billy, watch the class. When I got there, I asked the IA where Mrs. Ratchet was. "She's in Miss Bio teacher's room," she kindly explained. "All right," I said. "Billy, have a seat and I'll go get Mrs. Ratchet." "Mrs. Ratchet," I said a few moments later as I got to Miss Bio teacher's room, "Billy needs to take a quiz. We need you down in your room to supervise." "Miss IA is there," she said with a dismissive wave. "She can handle it." "Oh no, she can't," I explained with a smile. "You see, I am, as you reminded me, expected to follow Billy's IEP to the letter. His IEP says that he must take tests and quizzes in the resource room under the supervision of the teacher of record. As his teacher of record, I'm afraid that you are required to be there. It would be non-compliance for me to leave the supervision of his quiz up to Miss IA." She looked upset, but knew that she had backed herself into a corner. Reluctantly, and obviously fuming, she left Miss Bio teacher's room and returned to her room. For the remainder of the year, every test and quiz I assigned to Billy required that Mrs. Ratchet give up her prep period in order to supervise. There weren't a lot of them, but I really enjoyed twisting the knife every so often, just to remind her that it was her actions which forced this. Later, from what I've been told, she tried to get Billy's parents to change the IEP to state may instead of must. They liked the must. They kept it in. Edit. I've addressed a couple of things a few times in the comments, but I want to point out that I have no evidence that there was cheating going on in the resource room, nor do I have any reason to think that there was a bad relationship between Billy, Mrs. Ratchet, and her IAs. Quite honestly, the reason Billy chose to stay in my room a couple times was because those two assessments were short tests and quizzes, and like all kids, Billy just didn't want to spend the time walking down to Mrs. Ratchet's room. Also, like all kids, Billy was just not prepared for those tests, hence him failing. For a couple people who questioned why I let him stay in my room for the quiz after he had failed the first test, please keep in mind that his IEP at that point stated may take tests in the resource room. The key word is may. The decision was his to make. I would encourage him, but not require him to take tests in the resource room. Well, until the IEP was changed to must. Have you ever had a teacher you just couldn't stand? If so, what was wrong with them? Please let us know. I had a teacher named Mr. Stanley when I was in middle school. The guy's breath smelled like dead cats. No, you won't get a $400 gift card for a $300 washing machine. So I used to work at a big electronics store that also sold appliances. I had just put in my 4-week notice. I chose to stay longer since the holidays were coming and the store had a lot of people leave to better jobs or move stores for promotions. I was tasked with covering appliances since I was one of the high sellers with fewer returns. As I'm going around the department and cleaning the fingerprints off of stainless, I hear a loud, ahem. This woman was glaring at me and used her chubby finger to motion me over. Now, while I always prided myself in making angry people happy with their experience, and even if they were mad, I'd try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they might have something else they are angry about, and it's not me personally. So I got up from my scrubbing and walked over to the large sign that was posted. Now, we would occasionally give free gift cards on certain large purchases, and we had a promotion on a particular brand of washer and dryer. The sign in question read along the lines of, "Get up to a $400 gift card on select washer and dryer pairs," basically meaning to get the $400 gift card, you had to buy the $2,500 washer and $2,500 dryer as a pair. The woman points to the washer and dryer set that's the brand's low-end option that were $300 each. This was a few years ago, so not verbatim. "I'll take this washing machine. I don't need a dryer, and I want the gift card in cash." I politely explained the ad and this particular set didn't come with a gift card and that she would need to upgrade to get it. I also showed her the model that came with a gift card. She balked at the price, which I don't blame her. She then whips out her phone and starts recording me and asks me to explain again how I'm ripping people off and that she's going to have me fired, etc. At this point, my GM walks over and asks what the problem is. I should note that my GM and I had a very good relationship, and he would sometimes ask me to handle problem customers, usually around the holidays when the other managers were preparing for war, since I was good at getting people in a much better mood. I had also worked with him long enough for him to know when I was uncomfortable and needed some help. The woman points at the sign, camera still rolling, and asks him how he sleeps at night knowing that he's ripping people off. He then proceeded to tell her that she can either take the deal that corporate was offering or purchase an open box item, display item, or damaged that was heavily discounted. Lady walks off in a huff and met who I assume was her significant other, loudly complaining to anyone who would listen that she's never coming here again, and proceeded to purchase 4 new phones from the cell phone department. I have more stories about crazy people if you would like to hear them. My area is pretty diverse, so they come in all brands of wackadoo. I've told this story to family and friends for a chuckle, and I did not expect anything from it, so thanks. Lady acts like orders can be retroactively unmade. To set the scene, I work in a Chinese restaurant in a casino. Our clientele are generally terrible to deal with, but this particular lady wins the award for the biggest pain in the butt of the day. And she didn't even get her food by the time she earned this trophy. This lady comes in, sits down, and I notice that she's kind of watching us servers. So I go over and ask if she wanted to order something. She immediately starts ordering. Great, we're a fast-paced, casual dining venue. Get in and get out is better for us. But then it takes a sudden turn for the worse. Me. Okay, so I have chicken wings, vegetable noodle soup. Karen. Actually, no more house fried rice. Let's get the Thai combo instead. Me. Okay, we'll do that. I repeat her order and 10 minutes go by. Karen is literally yelling at me. Actually, can I cancel random entree and replace it with new entree? Oh, and instead of chicken wings, can I get the random appetizer? Me. So, you don't want those anymore? I look in the window and literally see the items in the window. No, just cancel them. I want these instead. Me. Okay. I go to the back, inform the chefs. The chefs groan. I figure we're done. We're done, right? Oh no. Karen is again yelling at me. Can you cancel the other order of chicken wings now? I actually just want another new entree instead. Me. Yes. I go back and inform the cooks, wrap around the corner, and moan. Another few minutes go by, and another server grabs my attention. Server. Karen says she wants to cancel her bottled beverage. I look at her table. Karen has literally opened it and poured it into a cup, then decided she didn't like it. Me. We can't cancel that. She's opened it. We can't resell it. No. Server. But she doesn't. Me. She's opened it. No. At this point, I'm ready to lose it. Is it really that hard for you to sit down and decide what you want? The cherry on top of this crab pie, this lady decides to wait another 30 minutes so that her ungodly kids can now come over. 30 minutes after she has finished eating, and then asks me to reheat her food. Working in a casino sucks because it makes it very difficult for anyone to say no to this stupid stuff. She demands I drive out to fix her broken terminal twice. A recent story reminded me of this. Way back in the day, 1992-ish, I worked tech support for a company that handled installation of Unix computers, terminals, software for accounting systems for small organizations. We could dial into their setup and remote control the software, apply updates, etc. One day I get a call from this woman who insisted that the terminal she was using was broken. I called into their system and could see that the terminal wasn't connected at the moment, so I stepped through her, making sure that it was plugged in. She insisted absolutely that it was plugged in, turned on, and the light was on and everything. After running through all the possibilities that I could think of, she was still adamant that I come out and replace the terminal since it was clearly broken. I was hesitant to make this trip since it was 225 kilometers away, would require about 5 or 6 hours of my day to make the round trip, traffic and a lot of snow. But my boss told me to make sure these customers were kept happy. I grabbed a new terminal out of the storage closet, some extra cabling in case it was just a bad serial cable, and my tools, and headed out on the trip. At least I got paid enough per kilometer that it was well worth it. It took me about 3 hours to get there, and this woman is just steamed. I walk in the door, set my bag down, look at the wall, where the power cord is clearly not plugged into the wall itself. I picked up the cable, plugged it in, and lo and behold, the terminal turned on and the login prompt comes up. I looked at her, and she tells me that she tried that. I was literally in the office for less than 60 seconds, and since the call was not actually our problem, they got billed for this 6-hour-long service call in full, and I got 450 kilometers of mileage at like 25 cents per kilometer, was way more than the gas/maintenance on my old 86 Honda Accord cost me. Cue the same woman 8 days later. She's on the phone to me, screaming that my fix didn't work at all, and that the terminal was broken again, and that I needed to replace the faulty terminal right now. I asked her if the terminal was plugged into the wall, because remember last week when I came out and it wasn't plugged in? Are you absolutely sure? She was absolutely sure. Another 3-hour drive down there. Walk in the door and look at what I see. The power cable is clearly laying on the floor again. I asked her if she saw that it was unplugged. She told me that she isn't technical and that I should have made sure that it was done right last time. I plugged it back in, and guess what? It worked. She was still mad because it shouldn't be happening this much. Not sure how I was supposed to make that happen. I grabbed my bag, but before I left, I noticed that this small company had gotten a new receptionist. I guess before they didn't have one. So I stopped and chatted for a bit, asking her if she knew anything about what's going on with the plug to the terminal. She didn't have a clue, but she would keep an eye out for me. Made it another 10 days before I get another call from the lady again. I tell her I was on a service call, but I'll call her back in 5 minutes. A quick call to the receptionist where she said that the lady had her little nephews in the room, so she ran and checked that the terminal was unplugged for me. It was. She plugged it back in, and when I called back to the lady, she said it was working again, but was still wary that it was going to go out. I told her that if it fails again, have her receptionist call me so she won't have to wait, and I can perform a reset of the connection remotely, a new feature, and get her up and running in 2 minutes. I never had to make another in-person service call to that location again. I sent the receptionist a big box of Bernard Callebaut chocolates for Xmas. Am I the jerk for telling my friends and family I won't be sponsoring anyone anymore? I don't think I'm the jerk, but a few people have said that I am because charities are really struggling due to lockdown, so I'd really value outside opinions. I'm on a small fixed income due to health issues, and while I'm not living on the breadline or absolutely broke, I don't have holidays, buy expensive clothes, eat at restaurants a lot, etc. I can cover my bills and expenses, but don't have a great deal of fun money. Maybe 20 to 30 pounds a month to spend on clothes, toiletries, maybe a book or a craft item. I also have some expenses that are directly related to my health that really mount up. In the past, whenever friends or family are doing sponsored events for charity, I always try to donate something, even if it's just 10 pounds. This year, a few of my friends have signed up to do various challenges. I know that the charity sector is really struggling at the moment, so I'm proud of them for stepping up. I posted on the Book of Faces that this year I'm unable to sponsor anyone as I desperately need an electric wheelchair, and I need to save every penny for that. I said I was proud of everyone that has decided to do an event and will support them by sharing the event, but that I was really sorry but wouldn't be able to support them financially. 2 people messaged me asking if they were exempt from this because we're so close, and I said no, it applies to everyone. I explained, although they already know this, that not being able to leave the house was massively affecting my mental health, and I needed to prioritize this. They said it was a bad time to stop supporting charities when they are already struggling. One of them also called me a selfish jerk. They said that electric wheelchairs are for people who can't work at all. Here's where I might be the jerk. I know that many charities are struggling or are reaching the point where they are unable to continue to provide much-needed services, and I've been helped in the past by charities and organizations. One of my friends who said I was the jerk pointed out that the charity she was raising money for, the Samaritans, was a charity that I had used previously. On a really good day, I can get around my small local shop, But that's about it, and that only happens once every 2 or 3 weeks. Most of the time, I'm able to get around my ground floor apartment by holding on to furniture and using walking sticks, but obviously outside, I can't lean on furniture, and if I fall, it's not a soft landing. I'm 34 and feel like I have no life. Also, I need an electric wheelchair, around 2,000 pounds, rather than a mobility scooter, around 500 to 1,000 pounds. As where I live, you can't use mobility scooters in public transport, and you can use electric wheelchairs. I don't drive, so this would literally change my life, but I understand that charities are struggling, so would I be the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I didn't think I was the jerk at first, but I obviously have a lot of time to think about things, and they really got in my head and made me doubt myself. I also think that not being able to get out much has limited my abilities to make friends, and I'm probably hanging on to people because of that. However, if they're making me feel so bad and aren't there for me, then I guess they aren't real friends anyway. Thank you so much. I will stick to not sponsoring and reassess those who have an issue with this. Thank you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friends? Please let us know.
Those so-called friends aren't friends at all. I'd cut them out of my life ASAP. Take care of yourself, OP. You are very much worth it.
Cold hard cash? Sure thing. Prefacing this with the information that 1. My grandma has too much money. 2. My grandma has too much time. 3. My grandma has too big of a freezer. And 4. My grandma is petty as heck. The story. I have a cousin who's always wanted all sorts of interesting things for his birthday. Grandma loved that. Absolutely adored it. She gave him a turtle ocarina once, and I love it. That should explain her gifting for you. Now, as he grew up, he was less and less inclined to entertain Grandma's whimsical ideas and started requesting more mainstream presents. Grandma hated that and still found ways to make them whimsical. You want a guitar? Okay, but it'll have hippie wood-burning patterns on it. You want bed sheets? Sure thing, but they'll have tie-dye prints all over and be made of silk. If it was possible to make a gift whimsical, Grandma would do it. We all knew this and started getting awfully specific in what we requested until one year he threw his hands up and said, I don't know, just give me cold hard cash. Bad move. Very bad move. Grandma has chest freezers, the kind that are 4 feet deep, 4 feet across, and 12 feet long. Grandma also lives in a little foresty cottage plot, which means Grandma has access to all sorts of gardening tools and tinkers. So Grandma, being Grandma, found a big bucket, a ton of little plastic seed bags, and got to work. Cousin, of course, was very excited to finally get a normal gift and was grinning at Grandma, thinking that he finally won the game. That is, until Grandma brought out a 2x2x2 squared ice cube full of cash. Edited to add, measurements might be off. She used some sort of gardening bucket, and I was very angry when it happened. This story has been retold by Grandma so many times that I don't think she remembers the exact measurements either. It wasn't frozen together either. Oh no. Grandma had gotten creative and layered the ice gradually, freezing the cash solidly through the cube. This thing was icy white and oozing when brought into the room, and Grandma proudly announced that since he wanted cold hard cash, she gave him exactly that. This mad woman froze the equivalent of $1,000 in the ice in mixed money, which were tiny coins and bigger coins and bills in little seed bags near the center. It took the block about a week to melt because my cousin's birthday is in January, and his mother refused to let it melt in the house for the fear of water damage, so it was set in their garage slowly melting. Edited to add, bathtubs aren't common where I'm from, and they didn't have one. Moral of the story, don't mess with Grandma and her whimsical presents. Wife gave away thousands from our savings account without telling me. I, 39 male, have been married to my wife, 36 female, for 12 years. We have no kids, but we do have a cat and a dog who we consider to be our kids. My wife has a sister, M, who's 37 female, who has made very poor financial choices and is now heavily in debt. She refuses to get a job and instead jumps from an MLM or get-rich-quick scam to the next, sponging off of relatives to make ends meet. Both me and my wife work full-time. We each have separate accounts that we use for our fun money for hobbies and whatever we want. We earn almost the same amount of money, with me being a little higher. So I contribute 60% and she contributes 40% to make things fair, and also so we each have about the same amount of fun money. We also have a joint checking and savings account that we use for the household bills and household emergency fund, like when the water heater flooded the basement in the middle of the night. Both of us have access to the joint accounts, and if we need to use it, it's never an issue, so long as we make sure to tell the other one that we used funds from those accounts. As I was going through the statement for our joint household account, I noticed that there was approximately $2,000 missing from the joint savings account. I noticed that they were all Venmo transfers to her sister. When my wife came home from work, I asked what this was about, and she told me that her sister needed money to start her own business. My wife sat me down and explained to me that her sister joined yet another pyramid scheme, this time selling fake nails and makeup. My wife said that she has the potential to earn 6 figures a month, and if that was true, my wife also said that she too was going to join her sister selling these products, and if she made enough, she would quit her job and sell them full-time with her sister. I told my wife that either she needs to get that money back from her sister, or I would open a new account for my share of the household expenses and transfer it to that account when it was time to pay bills. My wife is upset with me and does not understand why I'm being so unsupportive. I told my wife that not only did she take money and not tell me about it, she invested it into something without even considering how I would feel about it. My sister-in-law called me last night and said that I was a raging jerk and a control freak, and that I was stopping my wife from using her full potential. I told my sister-in-law that I would support my wife in anything she chooses to do, as long as it would not cause financial harm to our family. My wife and sister-in-law are both upset with me, and now I feel like a jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to get the money back? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his sister-in-law? Please let us know.
The only ones who will be making 6 figures a month are the ones running the whole pyramid scheme. Never give large amounts of money to people who don't know how to manage it.
We both know you don't have time to read all that. Give me my A. Some very short context to this story. I am not a natural citizen. I'm a naturalized immigrant. I was 6 when I arrived and understandably had issues with the language and was assigned English as a second language classes. Once those were finished, I made it my goal to never get anything below a 90 on any written assignment that was graded. And right up until college, I'm very proud to say I never got below a 94 on any papers or essays or other writing assignments. This happened a while back in college. I was forced to take a critical writing class and multidisciplinary too. It was fun, getting to interact with people not in my major at the time. Unfortunately, it also meant I was grouped with people who had no idea what I was doing, nor did I know what they were doing. I got into this classroom and it's very open. The campus I go to is notorious for constantly renovating buildings, and the 7 years I was there was never a time that construction work wasn't going on. The building had just been erected and was a brand new science building. In said science building were some modular classrooms, the campus's attempt to change things up and get rid of the traditional lecture style of teaching by forcing the professors to walk among the students and teach. It was meant to encourage engagement and ease of access to students. Anyone who has sat in a lecture hall knows how irritating it is when Stacy in the middle of the row has a question during the exam and the professor or one of their TAs has to squeeze past everyone to get to her just so they can answer with, "Do your best," then slide their way back out. This class began with the professor trying her best to be all fun and encouraging. Unfortunately, her method of fun and encouraging was to treat a bunch of adults like they were in grade school by making them all get up and share their names and fun facts at 7:20 p.m. After this debacle, when we're all ready to get on with the first class of semester, she launches into the syllabus and explains things. She states that, similar to standard lecture classes, which usually have 3 to 4 exams total, her class will have 4 papers to be turned in over the course of the semester. However, if the students weren't happy with their grade, they had the option to either rewrite 2 papers once over or rewrite the same paper twice if their second attempt didn't warrant a good enough grade. These rewrites could be submitted whenever the student wanted. It sounded like a fantastic idea, and the way she sold it, it sounded like a surefire way to not fail. I was confident that I didn't need those chances to rewrite anything, and after class, I asked the professor if I could set up a gamble with her. Given my schedule at the time, a warehouse job, a full-time job at an urgent care, another part-time job at a CPA's office, and a full college workload, I asked if I could use those rewrites as an extension. It wouldn't be indefinite, but rather each would count as a week. If a paper was due February 7th, I could theoretically use up those 2 rewrites and extend the due date till February 21st. Initially, she refused, but I explained to her that my father had just passed, and given that it was sudden, we hadn't had the money available to pay for the funeral services and didn't have the money to travel back home to perform last rites, so I needed those 3 jobs to make ends meet. She understood and made a note due to my circumstances. However, she did have a noticeable change in her demeanor towards me after learning of what I did for work. I assumed she was just being somber due to learning about my father's passing. Well, in comes my first paper due. I did my usual thing, wrote my paper, edited, gave it a day, reread and edited it again, checked with rubric and re-edited. I was satisfied and turned it in, and a week later, she drops this paper with a big fat 68 on it. I'm like, excuse the heck out of me? I go and speak to her at the end of class, and she said I hadn't understood what the paper was about. She was asking the students to write about how people in my field transition from school to career. I explained to her that it was very normal and in some cases expected to post your school projects on your portfolio while you worked on other projects on your own to hone and improve your skills. She just wasn't able to understand that and very tactfully, but obviously, said that I was just making it up because no company would hire an individual based on their school projects/homework assignments. She then stated that she would be canceling our agreement and going back to the original that she had written with everyone else. I told her I wanted to discuss it with her more, but the only options she gave me were very conveniently during my work hours. I even asked for video calls, and she said her only available hours were during my warehouse work hours. Just the way she said it, I could tell she didn't think much of my choices in work. I accepted, mostly due to exhaustion, but I was this close to getting through schooling with not a single paper below 90, and I wasn't about to have this woman ruin it for me now. So I met with her at the end of the next class and asked her when the rewrite was due. She printed out a rubric for me to follow along. I asked her if she wouldn't mind signing it because it has happened to a friend of mine where she has written something up following the rubric only to have the professor accuse her of falsifying a rubric to skate by. She agreed to sign. The new rubric for my rewrite stated that it had to be a specific font, single-spaced, a specific font size, references in MLA style, etc., etc. The only thing that jumped out to me was a minimum of 5 pages. That seemed a bit strange to me because I've always used the subtractive method of writing. Word vomit on the page, then cut out what's redundant. I was intending on asking her about it and walked to her office. However, she was in there talking about one of her students who was pretentious and trying to fit in where she didn't belong because she was just a labor class woman. The person she was talking to didn't sound all that comfortable, but she insisted on getting her little casual rage rant out, going on about how dare I try to readjust her rewrite plan to suit my needs, that it wasn't her fault I had to get crappy jobs, that she wasn't to blame, that I clearly didn't have the brains to do anything else or find a higher paying job. I didn't question it, however. I was told the due date was the end of semester. She said she'd end the class about a week early, so she would have that week to read everyone's final papers and submit grades on time, and I was welcome to drop my paper off at any time during that week. I agreed. Went through the semester and did perfectly fine on the other 2 papers, within my personal requirements, and settled in for the 3rd. I was working on that paper as and when I could, emailing sections to myself when I was texting at work, or taking a break and pulling out my laptop. Finally, I was done. I walked into her office with about 18 hours left before grades had to be submitted. She had hitched on a friendly smile and said,
Hey there, I'm glad you came by. I was worried perhaps you didn't want to rewrite after all.
"Oh no, I did. I was just at work is all."
Oh yeah, how's that going?
"It's fine, actually. I'm getting promoted soon, so I actually have to go. I just came by to drop off my paper."
Oh, of course. The warehouse job?
"Yup." I swear, that darn would have me gritting my teeth if I didn't have what was in my backpack. She holds out her hand while looking at the other papers, sort of with this,
I'm so busy that I don't even have time to look at the likes of you
vibe. So I pulled out my paper from my binder and dropped all 36 pages of it in her hand, all single-spaced, all the correct font and font size, everything within parameters. She stared at it and then at me, and I just stared right back. "You said a minimum of 5.
What is this nonsense? I would never assign a minimum page count. It said maximum.
If you check the 37th page, you'll see it's a copy of the rubric that you signed." And she flipped to it and realized she hadn't read her own rubric clearly. She done messed up. So to save face, she started rifling through my pages and nodding and random bits here and there.
Okay, I'll give it a read and get your grade in by the end of the night.
I just rolled my eyes at her and said, "Look, we both know you don't have the time to read all that. Give me my A." We both were glaring daggers at each other, and she finally just gave in and scribbled a 98 on it and said she couldn't explain away an error-free 36 paper when hundreds of other students submitted much shorter pages with grammatical errors. I agreed, packed up my stuff, and told her that I could easily have reported her and used the other professor as evidence of the way she was talking about me behind my back. She got so incredibly pale and tried to call me as I left. Jerk, I'm Indian. Academics is in my blood. Don't test me, you'll fail miserably. Anyway, I got my A. Have you ever had a teacher who treated you horribly? If so, what did they do? Please let us know.
I've got a co-host who treats me horribly. You need to respect me, Reddit boy.
You want me to sue? Well, if you insist. My sunflower story seemed to go over well, so here's another lawyer story. I hope you enjoy it. None of the following is legal advice, and I am not your lawyer. On to the story. A friend from school reached out to ask for help dealing with an ambulance company. Her parent had passed away in an ambulance while traveling between a nursing home and a hospital. The ambulance company sent friend a bill which she could not afford to pay and was threatening to send the bill to collectors. Not a problem, friend. Your parents' estate is responsible for this bill. You don't have a personal obligation to pay it, so they can't send it to collections in your name. Let me just mail a short letter and they should stop bothering you. I typed a very polite letter. This person has legal representation. Please cease any and all shenanigans, and thought that was the end of this nonsense. Fast forward a few weeks when friend sent a picture of another bill. Because the law is so cut and dry on debt collection, I assumed the ambulance company had some computer or human error which caused another letter to be sent. No worries, friend. I bet someone messed up. Let me give them a call real quick and figure it out. Imagine a super cool montage of me working through a really long automated phone tree before talking to an actual human. Hey, I'm friend's lawyer. I sent a letter asking you to stop sending her collections notices. She got another notice yesterday, so I just wanted to figure out why and how to make sure these letters stop. Surely this will be a quick call, and we can all have a laugh about whatever error occurred, I think. We will stop sending her bills when she pays. But that's pretty illegal for like a lot of reasons. I can think of 3 right off the top of my head. So instead of me getting all riled up and starting a lawsuit, can you just be cool, pretty please? It's not illegal. Try to sue us if you want our lawyers to explain it to you. She made me say the phrase that I hate more than any other phrase in the world. May I speak to your manager, please? Nope, I am the manager, and also more familiar with the FDCPA than you. What we are doing is perfectly legal. Tell your friend to pay. So, the FDCPA, Federal Debt Collections Practices Act, sets out certain rules for what debt collectors can or cannot do. But some states, like Texas, shocking I know, has stronger rules which protect debtors. I didn't know whether or not ambulance company was violating any FDCPA things, but I knew for sure, and when a good lawyer says for sure, that means 100% for sure, they were violating TDCPA. Telling me I don't know what I'm doing is rude. Hassling friend after parent passed away is shockingly rude. So last chance before I hang up to angry type a lawsuit and angry file it. You don't want me to sue on this because I will win. Please do, and we will see you in court. Have a nice day. Click. She hung up on me. Oh man, I was angry. Easily in the top 10 of upset in a professional context. The whole conversation took about 10 minutes. I have a fairly high tolerance for abrasive people. Most people don't look forward to talking with a lawyer, I get it. Still, sending collection notices to the wrong person after that person buried a parent and telling me that I'm a bad lawyer was pretty mind-blowing. I literally started working on this complaint as soon as I hung up, because if I threaten to sue and you ask me to follow through, my hands are tied. After I filed, the company was served, presumably followed by an actual lawyer reading the complaint and thinking, oh wow, we messed up here. A very apologetic lawyer called and we reached an agreement to settle, which included an apology to my friend. Pay me 2 hours now or 40 hours later to fix it, plus $40,000 in taxes. A while back, I worked as a business consultant, certified public accountant, CPA, for young and startup companies. I was hired by a food delivery service client, think Uber Eats type delivery, with a primarily corporate clientele. After setting up the client's systems for payroll, accounting, banking, but not order entry or billing, the owner installed a new state-of-the-art order entry/billing system. The new system seemed to work fine, but sales tax charged to clients were noticeably low, and seemed to use the same rate for all cities/suburbs and counties, even though each one had different additional rates over and above the base state rate. When brought to the attention of the owner, he insisted the new software company knew what they were doing and were experts in food delivery service billing. Later learned it was a small boutique firm from out of state with a very good salesperson. When I requested access to the system to check tax rates, I was told not to waste billable hours on the new system because he was certain they would know what they were doing and was unwilling to pay my exorbitant hourly rate to check something that was brand new. I explained if the taxes being collected were wrong, his company would be liable for any shortfall. Showing examples of taxes being underbilled were met with, "You don't know what you're talking about." As the business grew, my consulting hours dropped off, just reviewing month and financial information with the client after closing the books each month, while making the requisite deposits of collateral sales tax to the State Department of Revenue. Malicious compliance. I had no control or access over the tax rates being billed, but I did know the state frequently scheduled audits of new companies after their first year of operations. If the client was unwilling to pay for a few hours to check the system, wait until it was necessary to pay for 40 billable hours to handle a state audit. Lo and behold, on the 13th month after installing the new software, a notice was received from the state announcing an audit of the client's sales and use tax payments was scheduled for the following week. To make a long story short, it was found that the new software did in fact only bill the base state sales tax rate, totally omitting both city and county taxes. The assessment for unpaid taxes, including penalty and interest, exceeded $40,000, not including my hourly rate to work with the state auditors. More billable hours were spent by me going back to the larger corporate customers and billing them for unpaid sales tax, recovering almost half of the assessment. Most were willing to pay after my threat to report them to the state for non-payment of use tax. The client blamed me for not insisting more strongly on changing the tax rates and terminated our relationship after it was felt as much as possible had been recovered from customers. That guy that never paid and then tried to make me the jerk. So I just commented on someone else's thread, and it made me remember this one leech of a person that I had to put down in front of all of his peers because he tried to do me over for his drinks. Now, I shudder when I think about this. I suffer from bad secondhand embarrassment, and this interaction really burned itself into my brain by how awkward it was. But I came to realize that this person feels no shame anyways, so I might as well share it. So we own a restaurant in a small town in Germany. It's pretty common for this restaurant to have customers to come for dinner, or just having a drink at the bar. We got quite a few sports teams coming in to have a drink afterwards, and most of those guys I've known for years. Another thing that's common, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone, is making a tab for customers. So if they drank more than they had money with them, or just forgot their wallets, they could come by to just pay next time. Now keep in mind that paying by card is far, far less common, or used to be since a few years ago, in Germany, especially not if you only just pay small amounts. And while we did accept them when this happened, only for bigger amounts since we always paid a certain fee on every transaction. Now this guy was new to the team. After a while of him coming to our place, I noticed he always asked others to buy him a beer. "Next time it's on me, bro." But he never paid for anything. Not his drinks, and of course, never for someone else. And after a few weeks, the others noticed too and stopped buying him drinks. So one time he asked me if I could write him a tab about one beer. He'll come by tomorrow and pay, and since I did for others before and I kinda pitied him, I did it for him too. He did not show up. Next week neither, but after 2 weeks or something, my dad told me he owes one beer to him as well. He didn't see he already had an open tab that wasn't paid and just said okay. Then after a while he started to come back, 100% thinking we would have forgotten it by then, and I had to start reminding him about his open bill. He would try to avoid me, let someone else bring him a beer by outside while he was smoking, so I wouldn't ask him. Now, I was getting pretty upset, and this crap dragged on. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a huge amount of money, and I'm usually a pretty patient person. But years back, there was this other guy who tried to pull this same thing, and I confronted him. He tried to put me into a bad light, and I learned my lessons from that. It's not even about the money at this point, it's about not letting myself get done over. The night this happened, this jerk walked up to the bar where the whole team was sitting and told me he'd like a beer. I was done with him at that point, and I can get really mean if you push me too far. So here's our conversation. Jerk: "Hey, can I get a beer?" Me: "Do you have money?"
What?
Do you have any money on you?
Well, no, actually.
Then there's no beer for you.
What? Why?
You know exactly why.
No, I don't.
Do we really have to discuss this in front of everyone right now? You know it, I know it, and you will not get crap from me if I don't see cash.
That's ridiculous. You act like I'm some kind of thief.
Dude, you still owe me 2 beers. I had to remind you several times, every time you promised to pay for it, and you never did. Then you try to hide from me for weeks. I'm done with this crap.
What? Because of that little money, you act up like that?
Me. If it's such a ridiculous amount, then just pay it.
I think you should let it go for such a joke bill.
Me. What? Why in the heck should I? You owe money to me. I don't owe you crap.
Oh, really? Well, how about all the money we bring to this place every week?
Oh yeah, the others do. You, in fact, never spent 1 dime in here.
Gosh, you're being so pedantic. It's embarrassing.
Me. I have no reason to be embarrassed. You should be. You owe me. Do you really think you're the first person who tries to pull this crap? I'm mumbling to the others.
If I'm not the first, then she's not the smartest.
To which he got 0 response from them. Me. Excuse me? Now you're really trying to drag me being sympathetic with someone being down bad into the dirt? Wow, you really are a jerk.
Sympathy? For me?
Well, if a grown man can't afford 1 single drink and always has to ask others to pay for him, that's kind of sad, you know?
What? You act like I'm some kind of beggar.
You act like one.
This is ridiculous. I'm leaving here and never coming back. Getting insulted like that by a waitress.
Me. That waitress at least doesn't owe anything to anyone.
Oh, so you think you're better than me?
In that aspect, clearly.
Forget you, jerk.
Get out of here. And he did. Now what got me the most was that all of his peers were dead silent while we argued and stared to the ground. While here I was, a small woman alone with 15 guys, burning one of them into the ground. I was shaking as I was so mad, and yes, this was very detailed, but this must have been one of my most jerk moves, and I couldn't even enjoy it because it felt so embarrassing actually. I swear, it haunted me. But I gotta say, I got a lot more respect after that, and someone else even offered to pay his open bill, which I found too kind, but I explained it never was about the money anyways. Edit 2. I wrote about how paying by cards was uncommon because he tried to use us not accepting cards for 1 beer as an excuse, and I told him I would absolutely make an exception if he would pay then, and he said he forgot his card. So there's that. Want me to just ignore your bug because you're slightly senior than me? Alright, bud. I work as a developer in a company that creates very fast automated systems for moving around money electronically. So obviously we have very strict testing and error checking for any code that goes in a production system. And I'm one of the guys who does this verification. So 3 months ago, I found a little bug in a patch that was written by this one other guy who had been working at the company for only a year longer than me. He has the title of senior developer while I'm just a developer. It didn't really make any difference though. That was just something you get with a small pay raise once you do 3 years at the company as a developer. Anyway, I noticed this bug, email him and tell him about it so he can fix it and resubmit the patch. But he turns the responsibility on me, tells me his code is correct and that I'm just testing it incorrectly. I try to explain to him, but he doesn't budge. Tired of the pointless arguing, I suggest that we should clear it out with our project manager. At this point, he pulls the seniority card and says I should just do as he says because I'm his junior. Now that upset me. This guy has absolutely no authority over me. Who does he think he is? Cue malicious compliance. I knew that the bug would not manifest itself immediately. There were certain conditions that had to be met for it to show itself in a production environment, and it didn't do anything wrong. It would just crash the system unexpectedly. I asked him one final time in the email thread whether he's sure he wants me to go ahead with the patch. He says yes. Alright, yay. Now we have a buggy code running on a production machine which moves $1 million every minute. Nothing happened for 3 months. Life was as usual. Then, last week, it finally happened. Our system crashed. Well, we have protection set up for such failures that roll back the binaries automatically. However, the crash still cost the company a few hours of downtime, which means potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars lost. The crash was traced back to the patch that Mr. Senior Developer had written. I had the email trail to absolve myself of fault. The resolution was quick, and needless to say, Mr. Senior Developer no longer works with us now. I'm not in middle school. I'm 23. This happened 2.5 years ago when I was 23. I was still in college and had a part-time job through my university as a tutor in a middle school. I worked with kids during the school day. It wasn't an after-school program, so there were always teachers and staff patrolling the hallways to check for hall passes. Most of them recognized me and realized I was a tutor, not a student, though many had asked to see my hall pass before this incident. To be fair, I'm 5 feet tall and I weigh around 95 pounds. Many, if not most, of the 7th and 8th graders were bigger than me, and I can see how I might blend in if you failed to notice my tattoos and face that screams exhausted, hungover college student. One particular day, I arrived between classes. There were specific paths they were supposed to take so that each hallway only had kids going in one direction to avoid traffic jams, as the hallway posters called it. In order to assert myself as the grown woman I was, I walked the wrong way. Otherwise, it would have taken me about 5 extra minutes to get to where I needed to be. I swiftly moved my way through the crowd, low-key intimidated by the hormonal acne-ridden 6-foot middle schoolers towering above me, wishing I wasn't wearing leggings and a t-shirt like all of the other students. I was turning the corner and almost to the class when an elderly teacher grabbed me by the shoulders and physically turns my body around to walk the other way. I'll call her DET, deteriorating elderly teacher.
What do you think you're doing? You need to follow the arrows. How confusing is it for you?
Me. Oh, sorry ma'am, you don't understand.
Do not talk back to me. I don't want to hear it.
She turns my body the other way yet again.
Goodbye.
She was scary enough that I strongly considered walking the way she wanted me to go when I suddenly remembered I was 23 and couldn't get in trouble at a middle school. I turned back around. Me. I'm just trying to…
You have one last chance before I take you to the principal for this disrespect.
Me.
That's it.
She proceeds to grasp my arm with her frail elderly hands and lead me to the principal's office. At this point, students were taking notice, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt like an embarrassed 13-year-old. I saw one of my students, a 7th grader, laughing uncontrollably, and she said, "Don't worry, miss. I'll tell everyone you got taken to the principal." I thought Karen might have heard this, but she was very elderly, so she didn't. I shake her hand off my shoulder and turn to face her, trying to look as grown up as possible, even sliding my sleeve up so she can see my tattoos. Me. Lady, with all due respect, I'm a tutor here. I'm not in middle school. I'm 23. Please, I'm going to be late for my work, and you're wasting both of our time by taking me to the principal. It finally sinks into her head that I am not, in fact, a student here. I see her eyes glancing down at my tattoo, then slowly rising back to my face.
Oh my! Why didn't you say something? I am so sorry. It's chaotic in here, and you look very young. Please forgive me.
Me. It's fine, but you didn't really give me a chance to speak up. I hope you give the kids a chance to speak up before grasping them and taking them to the office, you discreet old jerk. I bet all the students despise you. Rightfully so. Okay, fine. I didn't say that last part, but I deeply regret not doing so this day. After this occasion, I tried a little harder to look my age while tutoring, and my 7th grade students never let me or anyone else forget this happened. My Karen sister got kicked out of college and blames everyone else. Her classes are all remote through Zoom. Don't even need a webcam on, just log onto the class so the teacher sees your name there and checks it off. But I guess that was too much for her, and she would rather sleep all day instead. She's missed the past 2 weeks straight. The university policy is if you miss 2 weeks of classes, you get dropped. I know, I go there too. So of course yesterday, when she tried to log on, she found out that she had been dropped from everything. She was distraught because she thought she was going to get in trouble with my mom and dad. Honestly, I was worried they would kick her out with how they had been talking when I started going a few years ago. If you drop out, you gotta find a new place to live, and all of that. While I don't feel bad for her getting dropped from the classes, I wouldn't want her to be homeless. Instead of being upset, Mom and Dad just tried to comfort her, telling her lies about how it's not her fault. The school was too harsh. I was planning on keeping my feelings to myself, but Mom kept bugging me, asking for me to try and help make her feel better. After the 7th or 8th time that night, I snapped and said my piece, saying how she knew the school rules. We all were well aware of them, but she'd rather sleep all day than go to classes for the past 2 weeks. So no, I refuse to feel sorry for her that her own actions caught up with her. You said if I ever did anything like this, I'd be kicked out, but now you're just coddling her. Mom said that lockdown has been hard on us all, and that it should be understandable if people don't have the energy to go to class. I said I would agree, but sis has somehow found the energy to go to very unsafe house parties each and every weekend since lockdown started, including the 2 she skipped class, putting everyone in the house at greater risk. But somehow she doesn't have the energy for school? Mom and sis aren't talking to me right now. Dad is torn on who to side with. Edit. Yes, Mom and Dad know that my sister parties. Mom is afraid of her missing out on a year or 2 of dating and socializing will lead to her being single forever. I'm already engaged, before you ask. Edit 2. Just to reiterate, I didn't say anything until Mom pushed and pushed and pushed me to. Also, as far as I've been told, I'm the only one in the family diagnosed with depression. Well, who do you agree with? OP or their mom and sister? Please let us know.
Making excuses for our kids when they slack off probably isn't the best thing to do. But what do I know? I'm just a Karen.
Long-term guest trashed us on a review while still in our hotel. Preface. Guest had been with us for 3 weeks and extended another. Thought they paid a week they didn't, and review trashed us while figuring out everything we said about their bill was accurate. Review was brutal, even though extending week by week with hundreds of hotels in our area. Her husband actually came and apologized for it, so that is something. Dear guest, if you would like us to find you a hotel with a pool and a restaurant, please let us know and we will see if it's possible. It probably isn't, but if I can find one, I'll send you there. I'd also be happy to have our engineer take a look at your closet. In all of my interactions with your family, I'm not aware of you having any Wi-Fi issues. There is an access point directly outside your door, so maybe we could check if there's something wrong with it. Please let us know more information if you are going to continue to stay. I think you should remove your review on the site, which maybe you aren't aware we can see is linked to our hotel and you. While the GM was kind enough to generically respond publicly, I want to be clear personally. When you came to check in, I gave you a suite you did not pay for, comped your parking, which at this point would be $600, asked my GM to discount a longer stay, and put you in a nicer suite. You extended for weeks when you could have left. I got you one of 2 rooms that has 2 bathrooms even, because you have a bigger family and it would be easier for you. The hotel might not be perfect, but I seriously went out of my way for you. I personally helped you. Unfriendly staff is incredibly unkind and personally hurtful. At this point, I personally saved you more than $1,000 just being nice, which helps me in no way at all, and went out of my way for you, beyond what you know. Yeah, so I could explain about lockdown and blah blah, but that doesn't matter. I was exceedingly generous to you, patient with you, kind to you, and you trashed me. I would greatly appreciate if you took your review off of the site. If not, I guess if you choose to keep staying in a hotel you hate with staff that is unfriendly, it's whatever. Let us know when you need new towels and quarters and stuff. Thanks. FOM that is exhausted and had enough. Have you ever gone out of your way to do something nice for somebody and they didn't appreciate it at all? Please let us know.
Story of my life, Reddit boy. Story of my life.
Am I the jerk for lending my car to my friends without asking my boyfriend? I have a car that I don't use a lot because I walk everywhere, like work and the grocery store. I sometimes lend my car to my friends, and that is something I've done since I got the car 7 years ago. Most of my friends live in the city too and don't have cars, but sometimes will want a car for a weekend trip or to haul stuff around that's hard to carry without a car. I don't mind lending it out. My friends always bring it back cleaned out and with a full tank of gas, car washed, and a lot of them have just helped me out with car maintenance. Like with their help, I can have the car at a very little cost, just my $30 insurance bill, and occasionally buying my own gas. I've been in a relationship with Joey this year, and we've been arguing when I lend out my car. Generally, he's frustrated if he wants to do something that needs a car, and I tell him I don't have the car that day because a friend has it. Last week, my friend mentioned wanting to go camping with her boyfriend, and I asked if they wanted to borrow the car, and she said yeah, so I lent her the car without really thinking. On Saturday, my boyfriend said he wanted to go to IKEA and asked if I'd join. I said yeah. He suggested we take the car because he wanted to get a table, and I said that I'd lent my friend the car, but we can take the bus and I'd help him carry the table. He got frustrated with me, saying that,
"It isn't college anymore. Having your car be the one car for the friend group is fine in college, but your friends need to grow up and stop mooching."
And he called me a pushover because I had 8 keys cut for my car, which my friends have. But honestly, that's just for convenience, so I can lend them the car without having to be there to hand over the keys. I said it was rude to call my friends mooches. Heck, maybe I was the mooch here because I'd paid for my own gas like once in the last year. Haven't had to go to the shop for maintenance at all because my friends help with that, and hadn't washed or cleaned out or vacuumed the car once. He said it was also inconsiderate of me to lend the car without telling him, and I said that I thought it was inconsiderate of him to always feel entitled to my car. If he wanted to use it, he could ask me a few days or weeks in advance like my friends do, instead of assuming I'll give it to him any given day. He said I was being crappy for putting my friends' wants on the same level as stuff in our relationship, like he saw a couple as a unit, and it felt like I was telling him to get in line after 8 friends of mine. Am I the jerk for lending out the car often to my friends without asking my boyfriend, even though I'm in a relationship? Well, who do you agree with, OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
Here's an idea. How about Joey get his own car? I don't think he should be calling anyone a mooch. Or maybe his mom can keep carrying him around in her pouch. That's a kangaroo joke.
2 for 1, idiot combo. I work at a brunch place in the USA and had these 2 interactions not even 5 minutes apart. Guest 1 orders the Eggs Benedict and after receiving their food flags me down.
Excuse me, I ordered the Eggs Benedict, which was supposed to come with Canadian bacon. They gave me ham instead.
I glance at the plate, which definitely has perfectly round and brown slices of Canadian bacon, and reply, yeah, that's actually our Canadian bacon. Looks correct.
No, this looks like ham to me.
It was then I realized someone needed an education on different cuts of pork. Our Canadian bacon is from a different cut of pork than regular bacon, so it looks similar to ham, but has a slightly sweeter taste. If you prefer, I can get your Benedict remade with bacon strips instead. Guest 1 grumbles and declines, their hunger forcing them to resign to the food already in front of them. Guest 2 orders the red velvet chicken and waffles, says they're lactose intolerant. I advise them they do contain buttermilk, so would not be lactose free. I automatically omit the cream cheese frosting because cream cheese, lots of lactose. She throws in a side of eggs and I ask how she wanted them cooked. How do they come? They ask as my mind races, thinking, have you never ordered eggs before in your life? Before rattling off, scrambled, over easy, etc. Guest blurts out, scrambled, to which I mention, absolutely, we can have that made with cracked eggs only, no milk. I should have known something was up when I received a confused glance, but she said nothing of it. Their order is brought out and the guest asks for a side of whipped cream and says that we forgot the cream cheese frosting. I again warn them that these items definitely contain lactose. They respond, yeah, that's fine. Was this a made-up allergy, or does this person not know the types of food they can or can't eat? I guess we'll never know. Am I the jerk for taking my older brother to a restaurant instead of taking him to the wedding? I, male 21, have an older brother, Adam, who's 27, and he's wheelchair-bound due to a motorcycle accident that caused him SCI. He was living with his ex-fiancée, but my parents took him after she said she couldn't do it anymore. I come to take care of him every day. Started learning to be Adam's career since mom and dad were becoming overwhelmed. I still go out and study while being there for Adam. It's been almost 3 years. Last week, my parents got a wedding invitation from Adam's ex-fiancée's parents. Her family and my family are close, known them for 15 years. My parents told Adam they wanted him to come with them to celebrate/support the family. No matter what happens, the 2 families will be close. Adam said no. Dad lashed out, saying he needed to stop being selfish and potentially ruining a 15-year friendship between 2 families by being bitter. I got involved after Dad said Adam had no choice but to go. I asked him to respect Adam's opinion, but Dad called me an enabler and that they get to veto his opinion since they do so much for him. I left and stayed gone for 2 days. Adam said they were pressuring him and he couldn't take it anymore. The day of the wedding, I went to my parents' house. Told them I wanted to go with Adam to the wedding and drive him there myself. They said okay. Told me to follow them and rushed out. Instead of following them, I drove Adam to a restaurant out of town, 2 hours away. We had a great time there. His frown turned into a joyful smile. Seeing him like this made me feel relieved. Once I turned my phone on, my dad specifically was livid, calling me a manipulative liar, asking why I didn't follow them with Adam to the wedding. Talked about how embarrassed he was, repeatedly telling people, my sons are going to be here soon. He yelled that I just damaged a 15-year friendship with the ex's family. I argued with them about how he ignored Adam's wishes and that being disabled doesn't mean he has no independence and opinions anymore. He told me to shut up and be grateful he didn't call the police for what I did and demanded I bring Adam home. I dropped Adam off and left. Other family members berated me, saying I'm not a kid and I should be held responsible for my recklessness and ruining the relationship between two families. To clarify, Adam's ex claimed they couldn't stay together not because of him being in a wheelchair, but something else. Adam said she was treating him poorly. My parents' relationship with Adam's ex is mainly based on doing each other favors and acting like they respect each other, but I know they're just looking for benefits and what they can get from each other. Note, I'm currently renting an apartment with a number of roommates. I can barely afford rent, and that's why I can't take Adam to live with me. But I will be doing my best to get my own place and take him in with me. Unfortunately, it's not possible right now. Well, who do you agree with? OP or his parents? Please let us know.
Those parents sound like the worst parents of the year. And people call me entitled.
Asked nicely twice, but neighbor still uses our lawn. My husband and I moved into our first home last summer. Coming from the city, we found our slice of suburban heaven as the property offered a beautiful yard with well water-irrigated lush grass. We also chose it for what we perceived as privacy, at least compared to where we had lived. When we first met our neighbor closest in proximity to us, she seemed very nice and thoughtful, and we thought how lucky we were to have such a lovely neighbor. This changed quickly, as she became overbearing to the point where I couldn't be in my backyard without fearing she'd yell over to me and to come over. She would interrupt me no matter what I was doing. She has a dog of her own, and she's single, middle-aged, no kids, divorced, and she let us know early on that our backyard was like her dog park before we moved in, as the old man who lived here previously had passed and the lot was vacant for a year or so. She has her own fenced-in backyard, but it's the opposite of our green grass with rocks and planters, and is quite unkempt. For a few months, we let her over frequently, then we began to avoid her. Other strange things happened with her that are beside the point of this thread, but anyways, what really started to irk me, especially because I work from home all the time, is that she would be in our side yard property all the time. She tied her dog to our fence, on our lawn. She used it as a potty spot multiple times a day. One morning, I even woke up to her loudly on the phone below my bedroom window, looking into our first floor window. It was getting obnoxious. Our side yards have no barrier, aside from the fact that ours has lush green grass and hers has rock and pine needles. Not once did she have a conversation with us about this, asking if this use of our lawn was okay with us. She started to call me in the middle of the workday as I was in meetings and trying to focus to ask if her dog could come in our backyard. The final straw was when she left a voicemail asking for permission to let herself into our backyard whenever she pleased, since my two dogs were always outside. I felt that was asking too much after she had been overbearing for the past 4 months of living there. Granted, I think she had good intentions and effort to be nice to us, but my introverted husband and I found her overbearing and annoying, especially in the way she used our property as if we didn't exist or as if she's entitled to it. So I went outside to talk to her after I listened to the voicemail. It took a lot of working up to and courage because I truly hate confrontation. I politely and timidly let her know that we don't feel comfortable with her using our backyard whenever she pleases. She didn't take that well, to begin with, and rolled her eyes and talked back. I went on further to ask that she stop using our side yard because we like our privacy. Then she really lost it, saying,
"Well, so much for having a good neighborly relationship,"
and stormed off. I was taken aback because if someone let me know I was overstepping someone's comfort and property zone, I would say, "So sorry, I had no idea." But of course not. Later, she came to our door to pick something up we were borrowing, and she started saying some nasty things, like how I hadn't tried to be nice. I had, but in my own way, and that my husband and I should get a fence if we were so concerned. Needless to say, she's a grown woman and the property line is obvious, but alright. Months have passed and we haven't talked to her much, and I observed that now she would stand on her property with the dog leashed, but the dog is on our property so it can go potty. She was making an effort? A couple weeks ago, she got a new puppy, and she's returned to using our yard as she had done before. She's literally training her new puppy to go in the bathroom in our yard. Really? So my husband wasn't too upset at first until he found 5 piles of dog dew sitting in our grass. That was it for him. I've been annoyed about it for a while because I work from home and see/hear her doing it, and it's also the principal for me at this point. He went over to talk to her with the dew bagged up in his hand and let her know that our property is not her dog's potty spot. She made a few excuses and said she'd get a property surveyor, and my husband said we'd respect the results. He also asked her to respect us, left the dew on her porch, and walked away. She hasn't apologized or taken any accountability. When she makes excuses as to why she uses our property, she passively tries to make us sound like jerks. As mentioned, we will respect the results of a surveyor if she gets one, but I know for a fact that our entire side yard is not her property. I genuinely don't think anything of it because of landmarkers and the deed I read, but whatever. She's still using our lawn with her dogs after we talked to her twice. Now my husband and I are submitting a fence permit with the town so that we can hopefully resolve this by building a barrier, and I'm bummed it had to come to this. This has caused us a lot of frustration, and it slightly feels like suburban heck now. Is there anything else we can consider doing? Also, what the heck? Cookies are too hard? I'll take care of it, boss. Hello all. I'm a prep cook at a nursing home that works 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. I work with making desserts, putting them on plates and bowls, and wrapping and lidding them. I also run breakfast tray line and am involved in breakfast dish room. Note that our previous two directors, basically managers, have quit with very little warning, and we have someone in from corporate filling in right now. Let's call her Karen. On this particular day, I had dished out red velvet cookies the day before. I was dishing out sugar cookies before breakfast tray line. Everything seemed normal, no large arguments or problems. After dishing out the sugar cookies, I started breakfast tray line and served breakfast. Note that the sugar cookies are not for breakfast. They're just a dessert that I did before tray lines so that I wouldn't have to do it later. The red velvet cookies were for the day of the story, and the sugar cookies were there for the next day. After breakfast tray line, I took a 15-minute break to eat breakfast. I then come back and participated in breakfast dish room. I then took my 30-minute break at 10:30. This is my assigned time to take my break. The cook starts tray line at 10:45 while I'm on break. This will be important in just a minute. I was in the break room eating lunch, and there were a few people from the nursing floor in there. We get to just talking about life. Eventually, my break ended, and I went back to the kitchen. I entered the kitchen, washed my hands, and started walking over to my counter. I was past the bottom of tray line, where one of the dietary aides has the cart of sugar cookies out and is handing those out instead of the red velvet cookies. I asked why she wasn't using the red velvet cookies, but this was unanswered by just looking around. The red velvet cookies I had plated and wrapped were nowhere to be seen. Instead, there were over 100 plates waiting to be sent through the dish machine and like 6 trays of red velvet cookies fresh from the oven just thrown everywhere. These trays were set on my prep counter and the cook's counter, and the plastic cart next to the oven somehow didn't melt the surface of the plastic. You get the idea. I asked Karen what's going on, and she said my cookies were hard. She informed me that she had unwrapped all my cookies and baked another batch. I now had to wash all of those plates and plate up a whole new batch of cookies. However, this couldn't be done just yet. Not only were the cookies still too hot to deal with, but I was halfway through a fruit dessert that I started right before I went on break. We're allowed to do this as long as nothing is left out without a lid. I moved her trays and staggered them on top of each other so that the cookies didn't get smashed. I then finished my fruit dessert as quickly as I could. Then I washed over 100 dessert plates and began plating and wrapping the new cookies. As soon as I picked up the first one, I noticed they were just as hard as the ones I had made. I didn't fully yell, but I was very loud when I said this. Karen, these cookies are hard. Even the white chocolate chunks are browned. I could see from across the kitchen that she just shut off for a moment. I had to put forth genuine effort not to laugh. Karen came over to my counter and picked up a cookie without wearing any gloves, broke it in half, ate one half, and threw away the other half. Note that she reached on a full tray of exposed cookies without gloves and took off her mask to eat while she was right next to me. Not to mention, she was eating over my prep. I didn't say anything about this. This type of not following her own rules has happened many times before. She told me they were fine and returned to her office. I started putting on a glove, elbowed her window gently to get her attention and not dirty my gloves, and snapped my glove on my wrist like a doctor. I did this to show her that I was wearing gloves and to silently remind her that she was not. She just stared at me. This caused a 2.5-minute staring match through her office window. Neither of us were getting anything done, and I ended up losing because I was genuinely crying from laughing and had to blink because my eyes were burning. I plated and wrapped the cookies and informed the administrator of all the wasted supplies and utilities thanks to Karen's behavior. The losses were 120 red velvet cookies, over 30 minutes of each of our time that she had to pay me overtime for, and all the water, gas, and electric needed to wash all the plates and make another batch of cookies. Oh yeah, and probably another 150 feet of plastic wrap. Upper management didn't do anything about this because Karen was from corporate. I'm now looking for another job, and the place in this story will be completely done for with only half a prep cook when I leave. I say this because the other prep cook is only there on my days off and fills in for the cook when I am there. There will be no way to have a prep cook on the schedule every day and make sure people get their guaranteed days off. I wrote this story now instead of waiting to see what happens to the company when I leave because I don't really care anymore. The company is headed downhill so fast that literally anyone leaving could cause a lot of fallout, so I don't see how the story of me leaving would be very unique. Barbie doesn't shop here. Cast. We've got Kid, Karen in training, and we've got me, I'm Batman. Anyone who has ever worked customer service will probably have experienced similar situations. For context, I work at a fairly well-known store in Canada that specializes in both work and casual clothing and rhymes with sharks. Most of the customers that came in were pretty sweet. Of course, you get the occasional customer that tried to rewrite the rules to their favor, but none of them stand out to me as much as Karen. She came in with a small group of friends, but they didn't do much other than whisper and giggle at everything. Anyway, it started off like any normal day, and I was working in the industrial section organizing the steel-toed work boots. That's when Karen approached me. She actually started off normal. Karen. Hi. Me. Hi there. Anything I can help you out with? Karen. I'm looking for pink steel-toed boots. Do you have any? Me. Well, sort of. Let me show you what we've got. I showed her what we had, but at that point, the closest we had were a light gray boot with pink trims, laces, and stitching. But nope, not good enough for her. Friends giggling. Uh-oh, he's in trouble. Here it comes, etc. Karen. Can you check in the back? This can't be all you have. Me. Sure, no problem. Now, I knew there was nothing else in the back. I mean, seriously, why would there be products hidden? But this way I can say I looked. So I looked, and as I expected, nothing. So I come back out. Karen was in a huddle with her friends whispering, which immediately broke up as I approached. Me. Well, sorry, no luck. Looks like that's all we have. Karen. Are you sure? I really want pink steel-toed boots. Friends are giggling. Seriously, did she think I looked like Chris Angel? I mean, if so, sweet. But the point is, I can't just make shoes we don't have appear out of nothing. Me. No, I'm truly sorry. If there's anything else you need, give me a shout, which is basically retail talk for shut up and go away. She wasn't having it. For the next 5 minutes or so, which felt like an hour, she just followed me around like a kid, repeating, I need pink steel-toed boots. I want pink steel-toed boots. Can you find me a place that has pink steel-toed boots? Etc. Her friends were having a ball, giggling away at all of this. Finally, she just got in front of me, stomped her foot like a 3-year-old about to go on a tantrum, got in my face, and loudly demanded, Why don't you have pink steel-toed boots? Insert dramatic gasp and more giggling from her friends. That was my breaking point. In the back of my mind, a little voice that sounded like Joe Pesci went, That's it. I looked right back at her and declared, Because Barbie doesn't shop here. She clearly didn't see that coming because her jaw dropped open and she turned a deep shade of red. Her friends, who were giggling at me before, were now full-on doubled over laughing their butts off at her as her mouth flapped open and shut as it searched for her brain. Finally defeated, she slumped out. I heard later from the cashier by the door that all the way out, her friends were hot on her heels, teasing her about Barbie doesn't shop here over and over, with her sulkily telling them to shut up. Now, I'll admit, it may not have been the best way to handle it, but even my manager laughed when he got wind of it. So, all in all, it felt good to put that little jerk in her place, and I can only hope she learned from it. But, Karens. Anyway, thanks for reading, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Entitled friend comes for a weekend visit. First time posting in here. My entitled friend and me went to high school together in my home country, and now I live in a foreign country. I've known her for 7 years. Entitled friend decided to visit me for the weekend, and that was her first time visiting the city I live in. Very touristy. We visit the city, take pictures, etc. We had a nice day. Summer of 2017. Me. Please don't post any pictures of me on social media. Entitled friend. Oh, don't worry. I will just post mine. Important for later. Once we get home to sleep, I show her the converted bed I bought for her. Me. Hey, this is the bed I bought for the occasion. Let me bring clean sheets for you. Entitled friend. You want me to sleep on this bed? I am the guest. I should sleep in your bed. Me, thinking that she's joking. Yeah, right. Good night. Entitled friend.
You don't know how to treat your guests. You aren't polite. If you refuse to give the bed... I'll look for a hotel now.
Me. Good luck finding any. It's summer in a very touristy city. Average cost 170 euros per night. She's a student. She can't afford it. Entitled friend huffs and goes to bed, and I do the same. Start scrolling on Instagram, and I find a picture of me posted on her Instagram. It was just a picture of me. Me. I told you not to post my pictures as I wasn't feeling secure. Entitled friend.
Yeah, but I took the pictures, so I can do whatever I want with it.
Me. But that's my face in there. Entitled friend ignores me, and I didn't have the energy to argue with her, so I just let it go. The picture is still posted on her Instagram until this day. And this was only day 1 of her visit. Is she entitled, or am I overreacting? Am I the jerk for not wanting family members to continue to use my house for holiday family gatherings? So ever since our relationship got serious, I would go and spend all the major holidays with my partner's family. This has been going on for the last 6 to 7 years. I just get along more with his family than my own family and feel more at ease with them. Anyway, a few months after my mom passed away, my partner and I moved into the house she lived in. It's the same house that me and my step-siblings grew up in. The issue is that it's the same house that they would all have family gatherings at, and even though it's my home, they still think of it as the family home. They want to have Thanksgiving here, as it's their tradition to have it at the grandparents'. We told them we weren't going to be hosting Thanksgiving, and we're going to continue going to my in-laws like we usually do. My stepsister asked if they could use the house then because they usually grill their turkey on the barbecue and play a game of football, but no one else had a yard or a barbecue. They all live in apartments in the city. I said no because I'm honestly not comfortable with that. She started to sound a little annoyed. Then she asked about Christmas because the kids all love coming over to go sledding and then open their presents by the fire. No one else has a fireplace or open hills fit for sledding right nearby. I again said that wouldn't work because we would be at my in-laws then too. She asked why they couldn't use it since we wouldn't be there anyway. This time I did sort of bluntly tell her I wasn't comfortable with them all in my home without me there. She asked if I was serious and reminded me that we're family. She said that I'm hurting them and the kids by taking away their parents' and grandparents' home when they all are missing them both so much as this is their first holiday season without them. She continued on to say it was bad enough that we didn't invite them over to do Halloween here when they knew we didn't go over to my in-laws for that. So is it bad that I don't want a bunch of people in my house while I'm gone and that I don't want to spend or house family gatherings with them at my house? Crazy Karen coworker tries to take my engagement ring from me when I show it to her. Okay, a little bit of backstory here. My fiance and I have been engaged for about 3 weeks. He got me the most beautiful ring that is exactly what I've always wanted and it fits me perfectly. The only time I take my ring off is to apply lotion to my hands. I work in the medical field, which means lots of hand washing, sanitizing, and cleaning, so my hands get super dry. And when I do that, I keep it directly in front of me on my desk and within sight at all times. I have never had any sort of issue until a couple of days ago. I have a coworker with whom I am friendly. Let's call her T. We used to be very close until I figured out that she and I lead very different lives, and I don't necessarily jive with her morals. Whatever, live and let live. I let a little bit of distance form between us, but we're still friendly and still talk at the office. So naturally, I told her that I was engaged and she asked to see my ring. She oohed and awed at it like most people in the office, and I didn't think much about it. But a couple of days ago, she approached my desk while I was putting lotion on my hands with my ring laying directly in front of me as usual. Without asking, she reached down and picked up my ring and slapped it onto her own finger instead, holding it up and admiring it, etc. I was flabbergasted. I didn't even know what to say, and I was so shocked that I just sat there in uncomfortable silence until she made a comment about how it looked so good on her, and I commented, "Don't go getting any ideas," trying to be lighthearted, but also wanting my ring back. She eventually took it off and handed it back to me and left. I was super uncomfortable with the whole thing, but I put it off, thinking I was being too sensitive. Today, I was walking past her desk, and she asked to see my ring. I held out my hand for her to look at it, and she began to remove the ring from my finger, so I pulled my hand back. She got pouty and asked why she couldn't take it off and see it, since I had let her before. I told her I had not let her do that before, She had grabbed it without permission and put it on without even asking if I minded. She rolled her eyes at me and said I was being ridiculous. I feel like I'm justified to be protective of a ring that represents my fiance's love for me. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to be clear, T is straight, although it would in no way bother me if she wasn't. She was married to a man, the father of her kids, when I first met her, and as I got to know her better, I found out she had a lot of side guys while still married and still expecting her husband to take care of her. I was being intentionally vague about it before because I didn't feel like it was relevant to the story. But since everyone seems very concerned, I'm happy to share why I began to distance from her. What would you do in this situation? Would you let her try on your ring and look at it or not? Please let us know.
I'd tell her if she tries touching my ring again, I'm going to HR. Then again, I never had an engagement ring because Reddit boys are cheapo.
Am I the jerk for telling my dad the reason I don't respect him is because stepmom always tells him what to do? Title sounds bad, but hear me out. I, 16 female, live with my dad, 38 male, and now new stepmom Amanda, 31 female, and step-siblings Kate and Bo, who are 9 and 11. My dad has this problem where he just totally bows down to whatever woman gets with him. Every girlfriend he's ever had since my mom passed when I was 7 has been the one calling the shots with him. They'd complain about anything, and he'd end up handling it to please them so they'd stick around. It doesn't help that he's only ever dated one crappy woman after another. Within the last few years, I've stopped listening to my dad or any of his girlfriends when they try to boss me around, on the girlfriend's orders usually, because I'm tired. Dad has said I'm going through the rebellion phase, like I'm just being an angsty teen with no real problems. Amanda has taken issue with my bad behavior and is constantly criticizing me and complaining to my dad to straighten me out, and so he's constantly on my case too. It all came to a head this week when Amanda got mad at me for not letting her kids play with my NES. It's old and delicate, and her kids are not. I told her to buzz off, and if she wanted to keep her kids entertained, then she can let them play with her Switch, which she won't because they'll break it. So after that, she stormed off crying to my dad, who stormed into my room to complain at me for being so darn disrespectful to him and his wife. He said I needed to learn some respect for him, but I just lost it and cut him off by screaming at him. I said I don't respect him because he's a chronically whipped loser who would rather coddle his jerk wife than stand up to her BS. He looked really offended and got quiet before yelling that I was grounded, then he stormed out, slamming my door. Later, my grandma called and said I was being childish and need to shape up and apologize to my dad because he keeps a roof over my head and food in my stomach, and that's no way to treat him. Am I the jerk? Edit. To everyone saying you should have explained why you didn't want them using the NES, I did. I explained it calmly to her kids, then to her, but she said it was just junk, and if they broke it, then it wouldn't matter. That is when I told her to buzz off. Edit 2. Some people told me I can edit in more after posting. I wasn't able to include all details because of the character limit, but I'm seeing a lot of comments with the same questions, etc. So I'm gonna try to sum some things up here right now. 1. I've tried asking my dad to go to therapy with me, but he's refused every time. I've tried talking to my dad more than once about how him and his girlfriends/wife treat me and how it makes me feel like crap, but each time I'm brushed off. 3. Me being disrespectful usually consists of me not dropping my online schooling to go into the store for Amanda because she doesn't have makeup on, not letting our kids into my room when I'm not there, her son has sticky fingers, not doing enough cooking and cleaning despite Amanda having no job and not cleaning or cooking more than once a week, babysitting all the time, and basically just not being a live-in servant for her/them. I know that whipped isn't a nice thing to say, and I'm sorry for using it. I didn't know and just grew up hearing it from my granddad, dad, and uncles. 5. My dad choosing to coddle his girlfriends and wife isn't new. He's been doing it since he started dating after mom passed, so this blow-up wasn't out of nowhere really. I hope this clears things up. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her dad and stepmom? Please let us know.
It's not nice to call that man whipped, huh? I can think of a few other words that you use for a guy like him.
Be quiet, don't speak, just take a seat and don't say a word. Okay, no problem. A little backstory. This takes place in late 2014 and I was pretty fresh out of university at my first real job post-graduation. I landed a junior position for a construction firm, putting up the condos around the greater Toronto area at the peak of the condo boom. I was lucky enough to be assigned to the lead safety team, and the lead engineer was my direct supervisor. The company I was working for had just scored a huge contract to re-engineer/fix the balcony's glass on several condo buildings in the downtown area, all managed by the same management company. The reason is, the glass they used on the balconies had a tendency to randomly shatter, sending thousands of tiny pebble-sized shards of glass raining down 10 to 35 stories. The official reason was a manufacturing defect. The real reason was prioritizing form over function. The company that built the buildings didn't factor in all of the vibration from the high winds and the heat from the city. And the solution was literally 5 centimeters of rubber, a thicker shatterproof tempered glass, and millions of dollars. But with that out of the way, I was employed in the safety department. We had a difficult time with the design/art department. They cared about form over function and safety. We were at the tail end of a project and about to break ground on a condo development. 2 35-story buildings surrounded by townhomes just off the lakeshore. Unfortunately, to the art department's dismay, we had to add in a wind wall right where the building was situated. It was a high wind zone because of the lake and the highway. There was this wind tunnel that would pass the back road of the building and winds at 100 kilometers plus. It's fast enough to knock you off your feet, but the design department hated it and thought it was ugly and cost sales. After months of back and forth between the two departments, my boss set up a meeting with the design department and put me in charge of doing the presentation, the new junior engineer, because in all honesty, it was just not an important thing. It was just to get them off of our backs. Well, it comes to the day of the presentation, and I show up a little bit early to set up, and I go find the boss of the department. I had never met the man before. Well, I get to his desk and try to introduce myself. I was met with a,
"Be quiet. We're waiting for one of the dummies from upstairs. Just be quiet and don't say a word and take a seat."
So that's what I did. I text my boss and explained what happened, and he said just wait. Don't say a word and just wait. So I did. 20 minutes passes and you can see the boss getting visibly agitated. Another 20 minutes passes and the man is seething with rage and makes a call. My boss texts me and he says the guy is going to call you in a few minutes. You have permission to say what you want. Well, I'm sitting in the dead silent meeting area and the boss makes a big spectacle of coming out and saying,
"Everyone be quiet. I'm going to call this jerk and see what's the holdup."
Well, my phone starts to ring and I answer. Before the guy says a thing, I spoke. "I'm sorry, I can't talk right now. I am trying to start a meeting, but some idiot won't let me." And I hung up. The man's face went red. He didn't stay around for the meeting. He went to try to chew my boss out. It didn't work, and the meeting went off with no problems, and it ended the issue with the design department. I only stayed at that job for about a year until my boss recommended me for a better job, lead safety at a different company. I stayed with them until last year when I decided to do my own thing. Entitled mother thinks her son gets a free birthday cake just because it's his birthday. This happened a few years ago. My family and I were eating at a restaurant and were simply amused onlookers and weren't involved in the whole incident. We were seated in an area of the restaurant that had 4 moderately sized tables, 3 of which were occupied by my family, a nice family and an entitled family. We were all in close enough proximity that we could easily hear what was being discussed at the other tables. The days before lockdown. And I learned that it was the daughter of the nice family's birthday. I think she must have been either 5 or 6. The birthday girl's parents had handed over a birthday cake to the restaurant servers before being seated earlier on to surprise her after eating their main meal. And so a few servers brought the cake out while singing happy birthday to the girl and had lit the candles for her, and the kid was adorable and super happy. Now, the cake looked like a kid's sugary dream come true. It was super colorful and looked delicious. Unfortunately, the kid on the entitled family's table also thought the cake looked delicious and was eyeing it like a hungry little gremlin. The entitled mother spoke up to one of the servers after they had all finished singing happy birthday and said,
"Excuse me, it's my son's birthday. Are you gonna bring us our birthday cake?"
Now, her son must have been a little older, like 8 or 9, and I don't know this for sure, but from the brief confusion turned mischief on his face, I'm going to assume it wasn't actually his birthday. The poor waitress looks puzzled and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, we were only given 1 cake earlier. What's your name? And do you remember who you gave the cake to? The entitled mother looks at her like she's grown a second head and snaps.
What are you talking about? It's my son's birthday, and he deserves a free birthday cake just as much as that girl does.
At this point, me and my sister both understand that this woman thinks the restaurant supplied the birthday cake instead of the family giving it to them beforehand, and we cover our mouths trying not to laugh at this woman's idiocy. The waitress catches on too and continues to explain politely that the entitled mother has misunderstood the happy birthday celebration that the servers gave the girl on the other table, and this entitled mother looks super upset, probably realizing that she's made herself look like a right idiot.
Well, my son should get a free dessert anyway. It's his birthday.
Entitled mother tries to avoid embarrassment by dialing up her entitlement. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't offer free desserts here for any reason, the waitress responds. I know full well that in actual fact, the servers sometimes give out very small free desserts on occasion, usually on birthdays, but only when the families are being kind and appreciative. Because my youngest sister once received one. I'm talking like one scoop in a little bowl with some sprinkles and some whipped cream. But hey, free dessert. But obviously, I was gonna remain quiet and keep watching this lady embarrass herself. And embarrass herself she did. She started kicking up more of a fuss and throwing a tantrum, and even encouraged her son to make a fuss too. The dad on their table looked like he was thinking about filing for divorce, but otherwise remained silent instead of telling his wife to knock it off. Eventually, the manager was summoned, and this entitled woman proceeded to shout some more until she was told that if she didn't stop shouting, she would be asked to leave. At this point, she had ordered food, but hadn't received it yet, and thankfully, she shut up. She kept muttering under her breath about how she was gonna leave a bad review, and even had the gall to ask the nice family for some slices of their daughter's cake. Obviously, they said no, especially after seeing how they had treated the poor waitress, and it was super satisfying to see the entitled mother get shot down again. Speaking of cake, what's your favorite flavor of cake in the whole world? Please let us know.
I'd do anything for some German chocolate cake right now, or the carrot cake. Have you ever heard of Golden Corral?
Give well in advance notice for vacation? You got it. Background. I had graduated with a master's in engineering degree in the USA. As an international student, I had 90 days to find a job or leave the country. So when I received my first job offer in only 2 months, I was very excited and took it to stop the 90-day countdown. The job was paid minimum wage and was several levels below my qualifications as a master's degree holder. During this job, which I had for about 9 months, a few of my vacation requests were denied with the reason given, not enough notice. As this company relied on having inspectors available for emergency projects, the company relied on keeping inspectors employed without pay till a project was called in by a client. They would have inspectors at home without pay rather than them being on vacation. I needed vacation. It was month of October to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday. This time I had wised up and asked for vacation 1.5 weeks earlier. The week I needed vacation, I followed up with my supervisor. He checked with the project manager, who proceeded to tell me the request was denied as I didn't give enough notice and also didn't follow up earlier so they could make arrangements for my replacement. I didn't get the day off to spend with my girlfriend, and she was sad but was mostly okay. But to make up for the birthday, we decided to take a long vacation in December. 2 weeks long to fly to the West Coast. Cue malicious compliance. I filed and sent my December vacation request in October to my supervisor and project manager. I copied the scheduler and a couple of other supervisors in the area who I was assigned to from time to time. I made sure to follow up every week or two till my December vacation. I hardly got any responses, while some responses said it's still far out and they will check when my vacation comes closer. Being sure my plan would work this time, we booked the flight, car, and hotels/Airbnb for our vacation by the end of November. December rolls around. I make sure to check verbally and by text message with my supervisors about my vacation request, and to remind them, I show them the vacation request and the emails I had sent. All of them say they will check, but no one came back to me about the same. By this time, I had been promoted to team leader and would have a direct line of communication with the project manager when I was acting supervisor. I would casually slip inquiries about my vacation in phone conversations and in emails when it related to my vacation timeframe. December 20th, 2 days before vacation, the company was spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on retraining its entire workforce. They scheduled my training during my vacation. Yes, everyone knew trainings were going on, but you didn't get put on the list until and weren't notified until a few days earlier. I reached out to my project manager and informed him about the vacation I was going to take and couldn't attend the training. He was furious, yelling on the phone that he never received my vacation request and I have no option but to attend the training. To which I say I put the request 2 months in advance and that I even emailed him about the same. He mentioned I never followed up and that I cannot take the vacation. I mentioned the follow-up emails, the texts, the over-the-phone conversations, and my follow-ups with other supervisors and the scheduler. He says he will get back with me and hangs up the phone. I immediately open the work laptop and forward the email conversations. I get a call from the scheduler. He was angry as well and says never to assume a vacation request is approved only because you submitted it earlier. To which I mentioned the email from project manager I received in October, which stated, the vacation request needs to be submitted well in advance and needs to be follow-up to be granted. He says my chances of getting the vacation are very slim and I better attend the training as only trained staff will be kept employed. Then he hangs up. I get a call from my project manager about 15 minutes later who's calm by now, asking me to cancel my vacation. My girlfriend by this point was furious and heartbroken at the same time. I assure her we will be going on this vacation even if it means I have to quit my job. She wasn't thrilled with that either, as this would mean the 90-day counter to get a job would resume and we won't be able to enjoy the vacation. To my project manager, I say canceling my vacation means canceling all the flight bookings and all reservations. He goes back in rage mode, saying how unprofessional I was and that I should have never made reservations until the vacation was approved. In my mind, whatever dude, last-minute reservations cost too much to afford and are never convenient. He says he will call me back. 30 minutes later, he had made arrangements for my training to be in the next class, which was tomorrow, 2 days until vacation. It was an accommodation, food, travel, everything paid training. I agree, go to the training, get paid for 8 hours of both days of training, free food and everything. Training venue is 150 miles away. They pay us 45 cents per mile. Come back and go on vacation. During the vacation, I get calls from other schedulers and supervisors to show up at some client, which I didn't need to, but I answered just to get their reactions. Some of them were salty and said they will check with the project manager, that I might have to cut my vacation short. I let them know I'm across the country and if they're willing to pay for my losses and flight, I would do that. Knowing the company didn't need me that much, I knew they wouldn't go for it. Some of my supervisors told me to enjoy myself and that they would take care of stuff there. I quit in January. I called Karen out on her bluff, only for her to change her mind. This happened in the last few months of the lockdown in Australia last year, when people were able to dine in at restaurants, provided they gave names and contact details. This information was destroyed after 28 days. For the most part, everyone was compliant, but you'd occasionally have a family or a person who did have a problem. I was front of house manager and had just handed in my 2 weeks notice, with it being 2 days from my last day, so my care level was below the ground. Here's a conversation I had with a lady who refused to sign in. Me: awesome. Now are we dining in or taking away? Her:
Dining in, please.
Me: excellent. I'll just have to get you to sign in to the government-mandated tracing form before you sit down.
Can I refuse signing that?
You can, but unfortunately, you can't dine in at our restaurant as it's a liability and we can get fined. You'll have to take it back home or to a park or something. Her family is already setting up on a table outside. Her:
Well, you know this whole thing is ridiculous, and this isn't the law.
Me: I respect your beliefs, but this is the law, unfortunately, and we have to oblige to it. Karen:
Well, fine. We'll get takeaway.
Pays for the food. Me: excellent. I'm going to have to ask you and your family to remove your belongings from our table and wait in our designated takeaway spot. Her:
Sure.
She proceeds to go and sit down at the table. I wait a couple minutes because, sure, maybe they're packing up, but then everyone else sits down, so I go out to tell them. Me: sorry guys, because you've refused to sign in, you have to remove yourself from our dining area. Karen:
We are though. Give us some time.
Me: okay, well, you've been sitting down here for a bit now, and I told you before you sat down, so please get up so I can seat some other people.
This is absolutely ridiculous. There is no need to be so rude.
I'm not being rude. I'm asking you to oblige to our store rules.
You're being so rude right now. Do you want me to take my business somewhere else? Do you want us to leave?
Yeah, sure. I'll refund you right now. I take a step towards the point of sale system with the full intent of refunding her. Karen.
What? No! My kids are hungry. Don't!
I shrugged at her, and I think she got the hint, because almost immediately they moved into the takeaway area. I still find it pretty funny that as soon as I obliged to her threat, she did a 180 and complied. Many more stories where this came from. Am I the jerk for pretending my son's bike was stolen to teach him a lesson? So my son, Tim, 9 male, has a habit of leaving his bike outside when he's done playing with his friends for the day. It feels like my wife and I are constantly telling him to put the bike inside of the garage because it could be easily stolen, and if/when that day comes, we wouldn't simply buy him a new one. He'd have to earn it himself with extra chores and prove himself trustworthy with his belongings. Well, last week as I was leaving for work in the morning, I saw that Tim had left the bike out again. Rather than talking about this for the umpteenth time, I decided to show him that our warnings could actually happen. I threw the bike into the bed of my truck and took it to work with me. Upon finding his bike missing, he was distraught. He called me crying, asking if I had seen it when I left this morning, and I told him no, I didn't see it. Isn't this why we always tell you to put the bike away? I calmed him down and told him that we could make a plan for him to earn a new bike when I got home for the day. After work, I brought the bike back home and told him that I found it abandoned in the neighborhood park and that we got lucky this time but wouldn't always be this lucky in the future, and all seemed well. Later that night, my wife was telling me that it was super lucky that I happened to find the bike, and I told her that I had it the whole time and ran through what happened with her. She looked at me as if I was some kind of a horrible monster. Why would you put our son through that? And why wouldn't you at least tell me this dumb plan so I could stop you? She said. It's not like I had planned it out. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision as I was leaving for work, and she was still asleep. Tim was only missing his bike for a day, and I wasn't giving him that hard of a time about it. Was I the jerk here? For what it's worth, Tim seems to have learned the lesson. The bike's been put away every night ever since. Edit. A lot of you are saying that I should have simply told Tim that we would take the bike away from him for an amount of time. I feel like that's teaching a different lesson entirely. I'm not punishing him for breaking the rule of not putting away the bike. I'm just trying to show him what would happen if he kept leaving it out. I want him to put away his bike because he's afraid of it getting stolen, not because he's afraid his parents will get mad at him and ground him. Hope this clears up some of my mindset. Well, what do you think? Is Dad the jerk for what he did or not? Please let us know.
I honestly can't wait to read the comments of what you think about this story.
Am I the jerk for not giving my kid's father a portion of my stimulus check money? So I just got my $4,200 stimulus check for me and my 2 kids. My ex-husband also received his $1,400 stimulus check, but has called me to ask if I would give him a cut of mine, since it was money I was receiving for our kids. Not to mention, due to lockdown, he has fallen on hard times, but I am not struggling. I told him no, because I don't feel he deserves it. Now hear me out. The court ordered $251 a month in child support when we got divorced. I asked for the lowest possible amount only because I knew that he didn't make that much, and I make significantly more than him. Right after the divorce was finalized, my mom and I told him that if he was struggling, not to stress about the payments because the girls would always be taken care of, but that he was not absolved of his responsibilities. Obviously, we should not have been so easy on him because he barely made a single payment for 2 years, just some extra cash here and there. Then, recently, he bought a brand new 2021 SUV, and that was a huge slap in the face. So we got tougher with the payments, and now he's been paying the $251 a month for the last 6 months. When I gently explained all this to him, he got defensive because it's not really my money, it's the government's money for our kids, and that he should be entitled to some of it. Then starts to threaten having to go back to court for half custody so that he would get what he's entitled to. So I mentioned to him that he does in fact have half custody. Everything was split completely down the middle, including health insurance, school, and extracurricular activities, which he does not pay for either, because he feels the kids shouldn't need to go to an expensive school and have all these extra activities when he doesn't have the money for them in the first place. I considered that a fair point, since my mom and I do have them involved in a lot of pricey activities, but we have never minded covering that, so that was never thrown in his face. And I should also add that he does not pay for half their insurance or medical bills, but he feels that because my family and I are more well off than him, that I should be giving him part of my stimulus check. When I asked him what he needed it for, he said to just have on hand in case he needs it. This is where I don't know if I'm being too controlling, but I told him, today and many times before, that if he is ever struggling, I will gladly help him. If he's short on groceries or needs to go to the doctor, etc., I have no problem helping him. But he doesn't want that help. He just wants some of my stimulus money to have on hand and then accused me of being controlling because I only want to help him in the ways that I want to help, not how he wants it. So, am I the jerk? My head is spinning from all this BS. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex? Please let us know.
I just have one question. Where on earth did you find this guy?
Am I the jerk for telling my cousin what she was eating? This happened in 2019, but has recently been brought back up, hence my post. Necessary background. I'm half French, my dad, half American, my mom. When I was 11, my family moved from the States to France. I lived there during the school year and spent summers back in the US. Growing up, I had a cousin, Jane, who I was never very close with. When I moved to France, she was outwardly jealous at first, but then started using it to brag to her friends because it meant she got to visit us there pretty often. We don't live in Paris, but Jane was always telling people about how she went to Paris all the time. When we got older, the bragging stopped because they didn't visit as much, and she became hostile towards me. I cut contact and figured that was the end of it. In autumn 2019, I got married in France and invited all my American family. Husband and I live near a small castle that's rented out, so we paid for my family to stay there since there isn't enough room at the house. Jane was invited because I didn't think it would be right to exclude her when her siblings were coming. In France, in the autumn, there's a huge culture of going mushrooming. We went as a family and everyone loved it except Jane. She spent the whole time complaining and making nasty comments. When my mother-in-law and I were making dinner for everyone using the mushrooms we had picked, Jane came into the kitchen and said,
Wow, I didn't realize you were so poor that you had to eat stuff you picked off of the forest floor.
And then she walked out. I was so ashamed, but also so thankful my mother-in-law doesn't speak a lot of English. She ate around the mushrooms at dinner and kept making disgusted faces. A few days later, we went to a nice restaurant for dinner. Jane ordered a dish with the same mushrooms she had been disgusted by, but since this was an expensive restaurant, she wouldn't shut up about how incredible the food was, how the mushrooms were so much better than anything you could get in the States, and how she couldn't wait to go to the market to buy some. So I told her she wouldn't have needed to buy any if she had participated more in the mushrooming, since they were the same, but we got ours for free. When I said that, she completely stopped eating her meal and refused to interact with me for the rest of the trip. There was a huge rift in the family because she left the day before the wedding and spent the rest of her time in Paris. My aunt was furious that I had publicly insulted Jane and was very cold to me for the rest of their time here. Recently, we've been wanting to plan a family reunion for when things are safe, but my aunt is saying she and Jane wouldn't come after how I treated her. Am I the jerk for my comment?
Of course you're not the jerk. Tell your aunt and Jane that you weren't going to be inviting them anyway.
Karen demands I edit her music videos without being paid. I end her career instead. I, female 20, have picked up a few skills over the lockdown since there was a lot of staying at home. One of the skills is video editing, like After Effects and Premiere. I had a fair share of hours learning and improving these things and learning from tutorials. Well, a friend of mine heard that I edit, saw a few of my fandom edits, liked them, and wanted me to edit a music video she made. She wanted to send it to one of those music companies and release it. The video was around 3 minutes and 20 seconds long and mostly done outside, so I knew it would take a lot of work correcting everything so it looks pretty. She told me she wanted it done like a fandom edit. I agreed since I cut videos for friends a lot. Well, in the middle, I realized it was way more work than I expected. I think even the first 20 seconds took me about 4 to 5 hours or so. So at some point, I asked her for pay, like €4 an hour since I'm not a professional, and I was still a lot on the side. She said no, she doesn't have money. I felt the no money part and told her she doesn't have to worry. Well, at some point, I just finished the thing. I felt bad because it was obvious I put more effort into the beginning than in the rest. But I do have a real full-time job, so I sacrificed a few of my weekends for this. She was livid and told me to redo the last part. I agreed to redo the point she wanted. This happened a few more times, then I asked her to go in Discord for me so she can tell me what was wrong. She declined since she doesn't know anything about this stuff. At this point, my boyfriend got to know about all of this and told me to cut it off, discussed it, and in the end, I told her I wouldn't do any more work for her, and if she wants something done, she should hire someone professional. She called me crying and told me that I need to finish this. It's the most important thing in her life. I was done with this at this point and hung up. I went to the computer and deleted all versions of the video I had at Dropbox and at my desk since I was so angry. Well, turned out she didn't save any of the video, only the raw cut from the beginning. She tried to reach me through my friend and I said I deleted it and my phone blew up. Messages from Instagram came in insulting me and they even reported my edit account. It's still there luckily, but I was checked from Instagram. I later heard the company wasn't interested in her. My boyfriend said I shouldn't feel bad. My friend said she was crappy, but I shouldn't have deleted everything. And the other said I owe her because I agreed to do it and that I'm the worst. I do realize that I shouldn't have deleted the videos, but I kinda don't feel 100% like the jerk since she didn't save anything, only maybe 80%. So, am I the jerk? Update. Thank you for all the replies. I read through all of them. Thanks to your help, I was able to recover the video and our mutual friend now has it in her cloud. She'll tell her I apologized. She blocked me for deleting my edit and that she can have them for future projects. And with that, we're both done with this. Thanks everyone for the discussion and the tips you all gave me. I took them to heart. Have a nice night. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their friend? Please let us know.
Bruh, why did you recover it and give it to her? Sorry, but your friend's a total Karen.
Am I the jerk for saying it's not my problem that some of my friends chose bad husbands and I'm not going to punish mine because of it? To start off, we need to go to the before times, before lockdown times, about 6 or 7 years ago. Right after my husband and I got married, he would always have guys' night on Friday night. I'd always have ladies' afternoon Saturday afternoon. This continued until we had kids. It didn't stop. No, we just waited a few months until the kids could stand to be away from one parent for half a day, then the other on the next. Yes, both of us kept our day off because my husband is an actual attentive, good father and a good husband. Once my lady friends started having kids, they'd join in on our afternoon less and less, and more sporadically. Yes, their husbands, well, the ones that had a night, had guys' nights, still went almost every week though. When the lockdown started, all of them mentioned, in our Zoom chats or text chats, etc., how nice it was to finally have more help around the house. The same thing I've had since day one, but I didn't want to brag, so I mostly kept quiet. Now with the rollout, and over half of my friends, as well as myself and my husband, having got it, everyone is starting to talk about getting back into their normal hangouts, and some have already started. Since many of my friends have gotten used to having an attentive father for their kids for the first time ever, a lot of them are trying to stop everything from going back to normal. So now they are trying, and mostly succeeding, to get our wives group to agree to tell their husbands we all want their guys' night out to end, so things won't go back to how they were before. Thing is though, I am 100% against that for my husband. He's a great dad. He deserves a break. He makes sure I get my weekly break too, when it's safe anyway. Plus, I love our mommy-only Fridays that I get with my babies, just as he does his daddy-only Saturday afternoons. And beyond that, like I said, I already had a good husband and my kids already had an attentive dad. We don't need a lockdown to get things right. Even most of the women that have good husbands are agreeing to this to present a unified front, and because some of them don't trust their husbands with a guy's night, even if he is otherwise good. They keep trying to pressure me into joining, but like I said, I like how my life was before lockdown. I like our balance. I like us both getting some downtime. So I kinda snapped. I got sick of their pressuring and said, look, I get it. You messed up at picking a husband and a father for your kids, and now the only way to get him to be a good one is to force him. I don't have that problem. I actually chose a good guy. He was an A+ dad and husband long before lockdown. I'm not going to punish him for your mistakes. Most of them are mad at me, but I did get a couple of agreements. It's looking like going forward, my ladies' afternoons are going to be a lot smaller, and frankly, I'm okay with that. But I am worried I may have gone about this the wrong way or even inadvertently made some lives worse. Edit. I have tried more politely telling them no before. Stuff like, what we have is working for us, and gosh, I'm sorry you feel the need to do that. Guess I'm lucky that I don't. They wouldn't stop pressuring me to change my mind until I snapped. Edit 2. My husband doesn't really hang out with most of my friends' husbands. Sorry, I should have made it clearer. He doesn't want our kids to see him with the type of men who are absent fathers. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friends? Please let us know.
You're better off without them, OP. They sound like a bunch of Karens, to be honest.
New manager judges someone on how they look. Unexpected ending. This actually happened to a friend of my stepfather's. The woman in the story is a wonderful, down-to-earth woman who just so happens to be extremely wealthy and owns a lot of local businesses and has a heavy involvement in them. However, doesn't dress like she has money. Pam was out and about one day shopping before an important business meeting and decided to head inside early. Pam had walked in to speak to old manager about the yearly takings and new hires. She was dressed down as usual, however her hair, occasional makeup were always impeccable. Plus, the huge diamond studs in her ears should have been a huge giveaway. New manager was a new hire and had, in the interviews, and seemed on paper a perfect fit. Apart from thinking a little too highly of herself and slightly snooty attitude. However, this was common for this area and the younger generation, so old manager decided to give her a go and hired her. So Pam walks in, early for the meeting, and begins browsing like she always does, taking in the aesthetics of the shop, the atmosphere, etc., just waiting for the old manager. New manager sees this and gives Pam a dirty side-eye glance. Pam is checking prices, moving items back to where they should be, etc., and obviously, new manager finds this strange. New manager runs over looking annoyed, shouting at Pam to stop touching the products, that they're obviously well out of her price range and they do not allow people in to just browse. She rips the product out of Pam's hands, insisting that she should not be in the store. She's definitely not the type of client they cater for, and she must leave.
You're putting off real customers,
she said. Pam just stares at the new manager, wide-eyed and open-mouthed, while the new manager is attempting to hustle Pam towards the outside door. Pam, without saying a word, shoves off new manager and storms past her, through the back and into the back office. New manager runs after her, screaming that she definitely can't be back there, and that if she doesn't leave, she will call the police and she, Pam, will be arrested. At this point, other staff members, some who know Pam, have tried explaining to new manager, but can't over her screaming, and customers are just standing there watching all of this unfold. When new manager makes it into the office, she finds Pam on the office phone just starting a conversation. New manager screams again that Pam cannot be back there, all the while grabbing for the office phone. A few moments later, old manager rushes into the back office, mobile phone in hand and a shocked expression on her face. New manager doesn't see this and again screams at Pam that she can't be back there and that she, new manager, is going to call the police and have Pam arrested. Pam has had enough now and shouts, "What? You'll have me arrested from a store that I own?" Pam attempts to shout over new manager screaming. She hadn't noticed old manager run in, went as follows. "Old manager, can you please calm this girl down, explain to her who I am, why I'm here, and please tell me what in the world you were thinking when you took her on?" With this, new manager suddenly pipes down and looks around. She heard what Pam had said, but it obviously took a few minutes to process. Old manager is standing open-mouthed like a goldfish gasping for air, while Pam, as cool as a cucumber, turns to make herself a coffee. Old manager suddenly remembers how to breathe and speak and chokes out. New manager: "This is Pam, our owner and landlord. This whole row of shops belongs to her, and she has come in today to go over the yearly takings and to help review the new hires we've taken on." Pam has a very active role in her business. Although she's not always seen by all staff, she is heavily involved in everything that is done and every decision made. This makes her a great owner and businesswoman, as she knows everything that goes on within her companies, and she's always fair. Now it was new manager's turn to be wide-eyed and open-mouthed. Pam sat down in the office chair, coffee in hand, and smiled at old manager. "Come sit," she said to old manager and patted a chair next to her. "I think we will start with new manager's review first. Don't you think, old manager?" Now Pam was never a lady to raise her voice. To be honest, she didn't need to. When she spoke, there was a certain air of authority about her, usually twinged with kindness and smiles. Not today, however. Pam simply explained that the one thing she hated most in this world was being treated differently. To her, it didn't matter if you had but a penny or £1,000,000, she would still treat you the same. That was the motto of her business, and this girl had gone against everything she believed in. Everything her and her husband had worked so hard for all these years. This was truly unacceptable and would not be tolerated. Who knows how many potential customers she had chased away just because of how they looked. So it's safe to say new manager lost her job, and after everyone in the community had heard about who she was, what she had done, and how she had treated Pam, no one wanted to employ her as a manager or anything else. Yes, Pam and her husband were extremely wealthy, but it was all hard work and effort that got them there, and they would never have done it without the people who had been there for them when they started out with nothing. They never forgot who they were or where they came from, and always treated everyone they met with kindness and compassion. Act like a jerk in the middle seat? Get arrested. After seeing another post about a middle seat jerk, it reminded me of what happened back in 2004, and this is unintentional pro-revenge on my part. This happened on a flight back after dropping my mother-in-law off at home. She was in her 80s and didn't like flying alone, so whenever she visited with my wife and me, I ended up flying down to pick her up and flying back with her to take her home. I liked earning the miles, plus I enjoyed it a lot because I genuinely adored my mother-in-law. Anyway, I had the aisle seat, which I always book, and the guy in the middle seat, who was there before me, refused to move his leg and kept his arm on the armrest. I got in my seat, but he's really pushing back hard. It feels like he's basically trying to take over the entire row. I'm pushing back too, but refuse to continue to this entire flight, even though it's barely a 75-minute flight. As the flight attendant walked by prior to liftoff, I purposely commented loud enough for her to hear, "Dude, stop trying to play footsie with me. I'm not interested." He got all flustered and moved a little bit, though not a lot. Fast forward to just after takeoff. Seatbelt sign is turned off, and they're getting ready to serve drinks. Now he's spreading out again, but even more than before. I unhooked my belt and jumped out of my seat and yelled at him to stop touching me. FA and the air marshal rush up to me as quickly as they could to see what's going on, while he's trying to form words. I tell them he keeps rubbing his leg against me and won't stop even after I tell him to. Before this guy could respond, the passenger in the window seat says he's rubbing up against him too. He gets taken out of the middle seat, protesting the whole time. He's sat down in a jump seat with the marshal next to him. The FA comes back to me and the guy by the window and offers us a free drink for our inconvenience. We both accept gladly. Free beer is always a good thing. About 20 minutes before the flight is supposed to land, the marshal comes back to me and asks if I wanted to press charges. I seriously thought about doing it, but said no. I'm just glad he's not next to me and pushing up against me. The guy in the window seat said the same, and we figured that was that. After the flight landed and we had exited the plane, I see the middle seat guy in cuffs and a couple of cops talking to the FA. The air marshal saw me standing there and walked over to me. I asked him what happened. She said the guy started calling the flight attendant all kinds of names, and she was pressing charges against him because he did make a threat of harm. He asked me again if I wanted to press charges, and again, I told him no. The guy's already in enough trouble. As I walked away, I looked at the idiot and started laughing. Maybe next time he'll just move. I didn't want him arrested. I just wanted him to stop being a jerk. He's the one who decided to make it worse for himself. Edit to clarify. This wasn't an armrest fight, though he certainly took those over. He kept spreading his legs wider, pushing up against me. Also, I asked the guy to make some room before I sat down, but got ignored. Have you ever had to sit next to someone on a plane who was a complete jerk? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Maybe the guy was just cold. Nothing like snuggling up for warmth. Isn't that right, Mr. Reddit?
Get away from me. Am I the jerk for not getting my nephew another tablet after his was stolen? I, 38 male, helped my sister-in-law take care of my 12-year-old nephew/godson Aaron since he was a baby. He spends a few days out of the week with me, and I help pay for clothes, school stuff, birthdays, and whatever else she needs help with. So yes, pretty much his second parent. She lets me discipline him, and I have a very active role in his life. This last Christmas, I got him a tablet. He doesn't have many electronics aside from his cell phone, which his mom pays for. At my place, he uses my work laptop if he needs it for school or uses his mom's computer when he's with her. Aaron was excited about this gift, but I did give him some conditions for keeping it. Obviously, maintain good grades in school, keep up with his chores, and I made it very clear he's not to take it with him to school at all. Because if he broke or lost it, I would not buy him another one. Aaron swore he'd take good care of it. This week, my sister-in-law told me someone stole Aaron's tablet. Why? Because he brought the darn thing to school with him. She said his teacher told her Aaron took it out during recess so him and his friends could watch videos. Aaron stays for an after-school program, and that's when it was likely stolen since it wasn't in his backpack after that. She's speaking with the school to find out what they can do about this, but it's very unlikely anything will come of it with so many kids, and obviously none of them are going to say who stole it. Aaron has been upset, and I already had a talk with him about breaking one of the conditions. However, he's begging me to buy him another one, and he swears he won't do it again now that he knows better. But I told him no, and the only way he'll have a tablet again is if his old one is returned or someone else gets it for him, because I'm not buying another. He cried after we talked and shut himself in his room. My sister-in-law is asking me to change my mind because he really enjoyed having that tablet, and this should be punishment enough. I still said no, since he knew these would be the consequences of taking it to school. Now I'm being called a jerk by my mom and my other sister because they know I could easily afford another one, but sister-in-law can't. Neither can they, since money is also very tight with them. They think I'm being too hard on him for making this mistake, and Aaron is already so upset. I'm finding it hard to see how I am when this was our agreement, and don't know why I'm being made the jerk for keeping my word on this. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you buy him another tablet or not? Please let us know.
I'd give him some more chores and allowance and help him set up a savings plan so he can buy his own. Sometimes we appreciate things even more when we're the ones who have to pay for them.
I asked for 3 days off. They asked for a doctor's note. So I have way more than 3 days off. Hello, Reddit. I lurk a lot and realized I had my own malicious compliance story a few weeks ago. My job is very mentally taxing. I also have my own mental health issues, so I try my best to balance. But I just want to help, so I get caught up taking more responsibilities than I am actually able to. So a couple of weeks ago, I realized my mental health is in steep decline. I was ignoring the signs to push through, but anyone with mental health issues knows that you can only imagine the signs for so long. I tried to get ahead of a mental crash and talk to my supervisor to tell them that I need 3 days off, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And as I had the weekend off after the days I requested, I figured that might be enough to get a good rest and reset. I did tell my supervisor why I needed the days, burnout, mental health, and they said they understood and would get back to me. They contact me back. I say they because right now I technically have 2 supervisors running my division, and say they can probably give me Wednesday and Thursday, but that they couldn't give me Friday. I ask if we can do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday instead, and I could work the Friday, have my long weekend, and that should still be fine. They say they will get back to me. I get a text soon after to ask me to help cover other shifts, and I obviously can't, so I decline. They get back to me the next day. We can get your shifts covered for Wednesday and Thursday, but not Tuesday, and you have to make up the hours. That was the straw. I just broke. I was asking for a break because I was working too much, because it was hard for me to say no. I even called them, they had me on speaker, in tears, and explain even further why I need the days. I've been going through therapy and my mental health has been declining. I had told them that I had spoken to my doctor and that my doctor said I was showing signs of burnout and recommended some days off, which is true, as I had talked to him the day before. All they heard was doctor and said, "We need a doctor's note." Okay, fine. Good thing I have another appointment. I had to work that day just defeated because they couldn't find anyone to cover my shifts. I talked to my doctor and he says that he can tell I'm in distress and he puts me on 2 weeks of leave immediately. They did not look pleased when I handed in my doctor's note. That was 2 weeks ago. I went back to the doctor and he extended my leave for at least another month. Cause, straw broke the camel's back and my mental health just went down the drain. Oh, also, when I gave them my doctor's note with 4 weeks on it, one of them wouldn't even look at me and the other just said, "Oh, doctor's note, thanks." Edit 1. Holy barnacles, this blew up. I thank everyone for all of their support. Also, for all those asking, no, I'm not in America, and I was able to apply for sickness benefits. Edit 2. I can't thank everyone enough for the support. It is immensely encouraging. My husband has been reading your lovely comments. I wish I could reply to them all. For everyone having their own struggles and still being so kind, it's very appreciated, and I'm hoping everyone gets what they need to recover/get better. Am I the jerk for returning my neighbor's packages that keep getting delivered to my house? Me, female 39, and my partner, male 42, bought a house a year ago. The way that the property is set up is that my house is in the front by the street, while my neighbor's house is more set back into the woods. We each have a separate driveway and mailbox. Ours is to the right and theirs is to the left. The neighbor's driveway is very long, and without the mailbox indicating there was a house there, you would probably mistake it for a road instead. About 3 days after we moved into the house, we started getting packages for our neighbor. We would always take them down to their house, but told them that they may want to let the delivery services know they were leaving them at the wrong house. The neighbors apologized and said they would take care of it. Our concern is that since my partner and I both work outside of the home, if something valuable was delivered and it got stolen or damaged, we did not want to be held responsible for it. It has now been a year since we moved into the house, and packages are still getting delivered to our house. We have spoken to the neighbors on an almost weekly basis to tell them that we are not a post office and to please contact these companies and let them know they're delivering to the wrong house. 2 weeks after the last delivery, I came home from work to yet another package for the neighbors. So the next day, I went to work late and went to the post office and returned it to sender with a note that they keep delivering to the wrong house. 3 days after I returned the box to sender, my neighbors started banging on the door asking where their package was. I told them that I returned it to the sender with a note that it was delivered to the wrong house. My neighbor was furious and told me I had no right to do that I could have just walked it to their house like we always do. My partner interrupted and told her that we have told her repeatedly to let these companies know they're delivering it to the wrong house, that we are not her personal package couriers, and that since this was our property, that yes, we did have the right to return them because they do not belong to us. Now this neighbor is blasting us to all the other neighbors, telling them that we're stealing her packages. She even posted to our neighborhood page that we are thieves. I responded to her post with pictures of the box we returned to sender that showed the notes that it was delivered to the wrong house, so that helped to clear up some of the issues. However, she will not stop. Am I the jerk for returning my neighbor's packages that keep getting delivered to my house? Edit. For everyone asking, I did not put this in the post as I was afraid I would break the character limit. 1. We've texted our neighbor to come get the package, but they would leave them there for at least a day or two before coming to get them, and we were tired of them being on the porch, so we would take them over to just get rid of them. 2. We have left the packages by their mailbox, but got nasty text messages about how the stuff could have been stolen because the mailbox is right next to the road. 3. We did send our neighbor a text message that told them both that if the packages continued to get delivered to our house, that they would be returned, and they never responded to the message. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you return the packages to the sender or keep walking them over to your neighbor's house? Please let us know.
Darn straight I would return to sender. Maybe that neighbor will be a little more considerate of your time now.
Entitled mom loses it when I block her daughter on social media. So, this was this morning and I am a bit upset. My ex-friend decided to block me on all social media because of a text message stream we had back in November of last year. I'll try to rewrite it here. Also, we're both 14, if that clarifies anything. Friend. So I like other friend's name. How about you? Me. I like you. Friend blocks me. Now I'm confused and I asked her friends why she did that. They all say it's because she hates me for putting her on the spot like that. For the rest of middle school, she bullied me and got her friends to as well whenever they saw me. During quarantine, I guess she unblocked me because I got a text from her saying, "Hey, I'm sorry about what I did. Can we be friends?" I thought about this for a bit, and I hate being rude to people, so I just said sure. Now her friends at golf think we're dating. She calls me names like Boo and Babe, even though I have asked her not to. This was my final text message with her. Me. I don't understand why you're calling me this. We aren't dating. Friend. Yes, we are. You asked me out when you accepted my friendship again. Me. I never meant it that way, and if you think that, then I'm breaking up with you. Friend. You can't do that. I'll choose when we're over. Me. All right. Bye. I block her. A few days later, or this morning, I get a knock on my door. I open it to see friend bawling with her mother entitled Mom. Me. May I ask why you're here? Entitled Mom.
How dare you break up with my daughter?
Me. We weren't even
Yes, you were, you little jerk. You're such a jerk for ruining my daughter's life.
At this point, I start to close the door, knowing I won't get anywhere by talking to them when the entitled mom juts her foot out to keep the door open. She is significantly larger than me, so she can easily overpower me and manages to get into the house. Me. Get out of my house! Entitled mom.
I won't leave until you agree to date my daughter again.
I pull out my phone and call the cops while trying to make sure entitled mom doesn't go anywhere. I was home alone, so my parents couldn't exactly help, considering they were at work. About 15 minutes later of arguing, the police arrive and start asking questions. Officer. What seems to be the problem? Entitled mom.
He attacked me.
Me. Actually, she broke into the house and demanded I date her daughter. Officer. Ma'am, please step outside.
No, this little jerk needs to date my daughter.
The police officer was chill the whole time and eventually got her off my property. I still have friend blocked and haven't heard from them yet. I haven't pressed charges and it seems to have mellowed out. I'll update if anything happens. Edit. For everyone saying to press charges, we decided against it. She doesn't have a great life, the dad is out of the picture, and we don't want to make it worse. Thanks for all the support though. Most of y'all have given positive feedback, and I thank the nice people for that. We are, however, going for a restraining order, and I'll update when that happens. Have you ever had to block anyone on social media? If so, what was it for? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for ruining dinner by telling the table next to ours to talk about something else? Me and my boyfriend went on a double date with my brother and his girlfriend. At the restaurant, the table closest to us began discussing a sensitive topic that is extremely and personally upsetting to my boyfriend. They were talking loud enough that it was impossible not to hear them. I know him well enough to know he would not react well, and sure enough, he started to look upset and left to use the restroom. He texted me and confirmed he was very bothered and said I should text him so he could come back when they stopped. While he was away, I went over to the table and told them it was a very sensitive topic for my boyfriend and asked them to please be mindful of who was around them and asked if they could discuss something else. They didn't say much to me, but changed the topic after I sat back down, so I told my boyfriend to come back. At this point, the dinner seemed like it could be salvaged, but when my boyfriend returned, after about 10 minutes, they started to talk about it again and began making dark jokes. My boyfriend excused himself again, and I became very angry and walked over to tell them how inconsiderate they were being. This time, it was more heated, and they talked back to me and then called for the manager. The manager told me to please leave the other guests alone or we would have to leave. I texted my boyfriend to explain and asked if he wanted to leave, and he said he did, so we left. My brother and his girlfriend said I was being ridiculous and apologized to the manager and the other table for the disruption. They stayed. My brother later told me that he and his girlfriend were so embarrassed by my behavior that they will not be going out to dinner with us again because we can't handle other people. Edit. I know this was an unpleasant situation for them, but it was unpleasant for me and my boyfriend too. Did I handle this wrong? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.